Alright, and we are now live running some HO scale trains on the newish layout. New because, we got the extension going. Anyway, it's been a while since I've done a live stream. I'm just gonna quickly set this to live chat as to not miss anybody's messages here. Hopefully some people will join in soon enough. Currently got the Acela hauling new Polar Express cars, and we've also got the Essential Workers unit hauling all these freight cars. Plus the trolley line is going again. Hopefully that will work well. Whole bunch of people joining in. Welcome. Good evening from Massachusetts. Hi from California. How's it going? Pretty well. It's good to be operating some trains down here again. The most confusing thing happened to a BNSF train near me. I'll share the story. And thanks to Gary M. for joining the Well Folks Club for 8 months. Hello from Adelaide, Australia. I don't think I can pronounce that right. Do you have a KCS locomotive? I have one. I haven't opened it up yet. I could throw a Canadian Pacific on, though. Technically the same railroad now. How's the new house? Things have been working pretty well here. A lot of work being done to, renovating it. Lots of drywall and things like that. It's cool to see the layout's been changing. Yeah, I can't wait to get the industrial section going again. Hello from New Hampshire. It's a cool place. Mike Meritz, you're my boys grown up. Mike Meritz and Stephanie. Just been here the whole time. Got Norm Corey here too. I just got a Lionel train from 1956. Well, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it's going to be solid. Post-war Lionels are so well made. I'm guessing there's a video on the changes. There was a video adding the extension on. I'll have to make a video when I actually add the second extension on, but I think that's probably going to be in the new year. How's it going, SMT? Going from St. Louis and coming back from my shift on the Polar Express too. One of those Polar Express tourist trains. Are you doing the Christmas giveaway? I'm going to try to host a display contest for sure. I still need to make a video where I either buy or fix something up as the giveaway prize, but I definitely want to do that. It's been fun the last few years, so I'm going to try my best on that. I love the Polar Express video. Bought one today in Bradford, Ontario. Oh, that's cool. Is that part of Bradford Exchange? They don't have a steam train in the Polar Express, it's Amtrak. On this layout, that's the case. Have you seen the Rapido 2600 series CTA rail cars? Would you buy them? I can't say I've seen them. I'd have to have a look. Congrats from Richmond, Virginia. And thank you so much for the super chat, Railfan20. Could you possibly run a BNSF locomotive? Absolutely. If anybody wants me to throw a pumpkin on the track, I will do it. Small town just west of Hamilton. Don't throw a pumpkin on the track. Oh, we're going to. You should get a Hornby Flying Scotsman in your collection. I would love to see more famous British steam locomotives. I have a Scotsman, I just haven't unboxed it. The other one I own is not in great shape. Every time I've run it, the motor has let out some of the magic smoke, so I'll get one eventually. When will you set up your N-scale train set? Probably in the new year. David from DB Tech had a really good idea, which was to actually add it as a sliding out feature under the mountain layout. I think that that's probably the most practical idea, so it's probably what I'll go with. Thank you so much for the super chat, Pacific Product Official. Just curious why you usually buy locomotives for reviews secondhand. First impressions would be a bit better if you bought the Polar Express from Lionel and not used. Just again curious. It's usually just for cost savings. Trying to buy stuff all brand new, especially in Canada where the exchange rate is not very good. It's super expensive. So if you can buy stuff used, especially within Canada, you can save a lot of money doing that. But as for the quality issues with that train set, I could see somebody arguing that, you know, if somebody's already used something, it's got some wear and tear on it, maybe they didn't maintain it well. But at the same time, too, a good product should be able to take a little bit of wear and tear. And if you buy something that's lightly used and it already has problems, you know, I think that that is more due to the manufacturer. And in the case of the Lionel train set, they didn't add enough glue to those windows. That's why they fell out, you know. So it's not so much a case where I think somebody took bad care of that set. I think it's a case where it wasn't perfectly made. I still like it, but I think Lionel could do better. How many amps are you using right now? Probably about 1/4 of an amp. I'm operating on 2 different controllers. We got the Sound and Power. I finally found that. And I've also got the DCS 51. But if I was running everything off the same controller, it'd be pretty minimal. These are both modern locomotives. They each draw about 1/10 of an amp. This one's a bit older. It might draw maybe 0.3 of an amp. I don't know. What's an amp? It's a measurement of power usage. It's like you put volts in the track and then the amps go up. It's the resistance, and then I think the end result is watts. Something like that. Working on the layout with my grandfather, wondering how do you do? Oh, pretty well. Happy to be down here running some trains. Can you run the 100-year-old Lionel locomotive on your set? I don't own that locomotive. It belongs to a buddy of mine who, I don't even know how he acquired it, but he got it and it wasn't running, so he gave it to me to repair and handed it back to him. What's your opinion on Bachmann Easy Track? I would say it's not terrible for like a beginner. I mean, it will get the job done if you're just building like a basic oval or something like that. In the long run, I don't think it's great. First of all, joiners are just not meant to be used time and time again. So if you're taking it apart and putting it back together, eventually you're going to have electrical issues with that. And their steel track is obviously also prone to having electrical issues over time. Wasn't a very big fan of their figure 8 set. If you watched that video, I had a lot of issues where the grade was too steep and that set just did not work. But if you're buying a basic Bachmann train set for like $100 and it comes with a loop of Easy Track, for a short time, you know, it will get the job done. I like my Bachmann Nickel Silver Easy Track. It's definitely better. Are your trains DC or DCC? The layout operates both. So right now the locomotive on the outside track is DCC and the locomotive on the inside track is DC. My layout's wired kind of in a unique way where both of these controllers actually feed out to this switch. So depending on which way I have it switched, you'll be running off one of these two controllers. But I've also got a third DC controller, so I can actually toggle this switch. So if I flip this switch right here and set it to same, you see how that thing starts idling on DCC? It's because both tracks switch to the same power supply. So if I go over to my DCC controller now, it starts moving. So it really is a hybrid layout. Do you have a 284 Berkshire, and if so, what is the running mark, the railroad? Well, as of about 2 days ago, I have the Polar Express, which is technically Père Marquette, but I also have, I think, a New York Central and an NKP one. Jersey Bill, thank you so much for the super chat. Merry Christmas to you and Chloe and the family. Is hooking up wires easy to do? I would say so. You can buy rail joiners which have wires pre-attached to them, so if you want, you can just, twist tie the wires. Personally, I really like soldering all my connections. I find it makes a more reliable connection. So if you're getting into model railroading, just buy a soldering iron. You can find them pretty cheap online, and it will definitely help you. It's cool you integrated the buttons on the side of the table. The system has worked really well. I'll have to do a video on how to wire this specifically. I've already done a video on how to wire a DCC controller up to a DC controller and toggle between them, but this two-track system is a little different. Are you doing a Christmas giveaway this year? Probably a Christmas display contest again. Do you have any Pennsylvania Railroad engines? Yeah, sure. Let's see if I can find one to run here. I've definitely got a few in the collection. I don't know which is best to run. My 1956 Lionel is a 246 Scout. The Scouts are pretty legendary. Probably one of the most common locomotives Lionel ever made, but they're pretty darn reliable, honestly. Try to run that one, I think. Hi from Australia, standing there building a new layout myself. We get the Polar Express hauling the cars. I'll probably do that a little bit later on. I suspect there's going to be some other people who want to see it run. Coupler's not working so well on this one. Have you ever repainted a locomotive? I'm working on one right now. I've done a few repaints, especially in some of my older videos I did some repainting. Truth is, I'm not great with paint. It's definitely not a strong suit, nor do I necessarily enjoy it. I really like the results of painting something, but frankly, I find it a process that has to be done very meticulously, and if it's not done right, it definitely shows. So I'm no expert on that. This coupler has lost its spring, that's why it's having so many troubles. There we go. I have a request. Do you think you can operate your DD40 locomotive? I'd really like to see it run. Could certainly try. Will we ever get to see Nerf Cat again? Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, at least on Earth. Will you do a New Year's Eve live stream? Probably not on New Year's. I might do one on Christmas Eve, though. Is it okay to use paper mache or foam on foam mountains? What is it used for? Yeah, paper mache will work. It's a little bit of a less common method these days, if I'm honest. But yeah, I know a lot of people use paper mache. Well, looks like we got another super chat here. Let me have a look at that. Pacific Productions official. I kind of wish I still had a layout because I quit model railroading. The layout became a huge maintenance hog. I felt I spent more time maintaining it and fixing stuff, but a dream isn't dead because Train Simulator exists. Well, that is one benefit of the simulator games. I will say, though, like, if you just throw roadbed track on a piece of plywood and the plywood's even, I really would not expect too many issues. It's when you build something really complex, that's where problems start to arise. Speaking of maintenance issues, I'm pretty sure this one was derailing last time. We'll see if it's still doing that. Oh, that doesn't look bad. Can you run a New York Central steam locomotive if you have one? We can try. I don't know if it's going to work on the inside circuit, but let's give it a shot. So this right here is my 484 Niagara locomotive. It looks a bit bald because I removed the deflectors on it. And we're going to see if it's going to be able to stay on the track here. I don't know if it can handle that switch over there. What's your favorite part of the hobby? Ultimately, it's repairing the trains. I really love taking something that hasn't run for, 15, 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 years and bringing it back to life. It's very satisfying just to see something that's really dilapidated and then kind of work on it, actually get it functional again. This locomotive is actually DCC too, so see if we can get it to operate. I don't remember what number it's programmed to. I want to say maybe 4. Nope, nothing there. Let's try 5. Just trying to go through numbers 1 through 10. This was programmed to an old Bachmann controller, so that's why it has a single digit address. Looks like we've got a couple super chats. Pacific Official Productions, it's weird. It wasn't even a complex, it was just a 4-foot long oval with a small yard and it had dead spots somewhere. Oh, man. And James Strickland says, greetings from North Carolina, USA. Well, thank you for the super chat there, James. Let's see, maybe it's 9. Nope. 8. And it's not responding to that, so I'm going to try to run it off DC power. Yeah, that's okay. This is weird. I don't know if you can see that, but the light on the back of the car's on. Oh, now it's starting to move. I was gonna say it's not running. SMT will run 1225 later on. Yeah, that's the goal. I suspect there's gonna be quite a few requests for that one. Will it stay or derail on this switch? Put your bets in the comments. Never mind. I guess that answers that. Try running this on the outside track. Will you ever do real-life train spotting? It's pretty fun coming from someone who's actually in the hobby of train spotting. I have done some rail fanning before. I did a live stream just a few weeks ago out in Smith Falls, Ontario. The truth is, in the Ottawa Valley, there's not a whole lot of rail traffic anymore. Ottawa is just not a very industrial place, so if you want to see some actual freight trains, you're going to be probably driving an hour. So it's just not very practical. I don't have a lot of time on my hands, but I do like rail fanning. It is fun. Hello from Jackson, Tennessee. You got me into the hobby. That's great to hear. Now this thing is responding to DCC, although I don't know what number. It's definitely not 8. I'm going to try 4 again. Let's see. Stop. Oh, it's programmed to number 6. That's interesting. Hello from Memphis, Tennessee. Welcome. I saw Paramarquette 1225 in Owasso, Michigan last week. My favorite steamer that still operates. Good on the crew and the team for keeping that thing going. The Canadian Pacific Holiday Train was beautiful. It's really great that Canadian Pacific hosts that. It's always been such a tradition to go out there and see it. The new mountain in the layout in the back makes the layout look better. Yeah, I agree. Do you have Union Pacific 844? I can't say I do. Need more CNW stuff. Can you really have too much of it? Hello from Portland, Tennessee. How do you know what radius your track is? It's labeled when you buy it, so Atlas and Bachmann, Walthers, many other manufacturers, they use imperial measurements, so you have like 15 radius, 18 radius, 22 radius, 24 radius, 30 radius, and the radius is basically just the track, like it's sort of like a 45-degree turn. I guess it would be a 90-degree turn, I don't know, but it's like a quarter of a circle. and that's how you measure it. There are some other brands like Kato, which use metric measurements. I still haven't figured that out yet, despite being in Canada. Generally, they're all imperial. You also have FlexTrack, which allows you to make your own radius. It's true. A lot of people who use FlexTrack, though, have an attachment which you actually put in the track, though, to make it a certain radius. So technically, it does follow a certain line in cases. What's your opinion on customizing an engine to be the wrong livery, like a New York Central locomotive in Pennsylvania colors? I really don't have a problem with that. I think the only exception would be if somebody's painting up a really rare locomotive, like if they somehow got their hands on, like, let's say a Rivarossi Hiawatha, and they wanted to paint that up to be like a, I don't know, coming around the mountain Tyco locomotive. I wouldn't be very happy about that personally, but for like a generic engine like a Bachmann, if you want to throw your own road on there, I think it's kind of cool in some cases. It makes the engine unique. Speaking of which, would you paint a Rivarossi Hiawatha to make it look like the even more rare version? I can't say I would. Like, I think what makes the rare version rare is the fact that Rivarossi might have made a couple, I don't know. There's not even any evidence that they exist. Do you know what Trackmasters are? I can't say I do. You should run a Via P42. We could definitely do that. So you're basically chasing the unobtainable. Yes, absolutely. What brand is the tram? It's a Bachmann. I found it at a train show for 10 bucks. It's been pretty reliable so far. Can you make a rail yard in the future? That's the goal. I don't know if it's going to be super prototypical, but there's definitely going to be a staging yard, and there's definitely going to be a new rail yard on the new layout. Do you still have the BNSF 3001 from the Rail Chief set years ago? Does it still work? If possible, can you run it at some point in the stream? I don't know if I have it at this house, but I definitely still have that locomotive, and I think the last time I was running it was in a live stream, so I think it's still operable. I'll have a look in a sec here. I don't know if I've brought it over yet, but I can confirm it at least still works. I was wondering if you'd be interested in a Union Pacific Dash 8 that I have. If you're interested, we could possibly talk about this. I already have a Union Pacific Dash 8, so I don't think I'd have any use for such a thing, but I hope you find success in finding a buyer for that. If you buy used FlexTrack, it will be cut to fit the prior setup. Check the different pieces to avoid many adjusting cuts. that may already be close to your need. That's a good point. I've bought used Flex Track before. It was kind of a nightmare because I had to clean up all the old ballast off of it just to get it to sit on the ground evenly, but you do save a lot of money that way. You should run the F40 somebody made you. Yeah, we could definitely do that. What condition is the mountain layout in? Could it be repaired? I think the mountain layout is okay. The track was bending really bad on top of it when it was being moved, but that's kind of fallen back into place. So honestly, I think if this thing is given a good base, it's going to be all right. It's really this layout that I'm more concerned about because this wasn't built properly. I didn't have the money back when I was building all of this to do it correctly, and so I was just building it on top of scrap wood. And that worked fine for a while, but when it was time to move this thing, it really suffered. And just to show you what I mean, this is how weak it is now. It's not good if you can make your layout flex with one finger, so I'm going to rebuild all this and we're just going to avoid that. You need to go to the Southern California Railroad Museum in Perry, California. They have a very cute 040T Plantain named Chloe. Matthews Model Trains, thank you for joining the Well Folks Club. Have a quick look here, see if we can find that BNSF engine. If I can't, I'll at least run the SMT mainline locomotive. Yeah, I don't think I have the 3001. I do have this, though. How's the family doing? Pretty well. Everyone's getting ready for Christmas around here. Can you run a CSX-8? Yeah, sure. The Chloe is actually an 042. Have you ever had a boxcar catch on fire while running it? I haven't had anything burst into flames. I've had a couple locomotives burn up, but that's about the extent of it. Are you having to do any major work on the new house? We've got a new heater in, a new wood stove. I've torn out most of the old kitchen, torn out most of the old living room. Did a lot of removal of stuff in the old bedroom. Quite a bit. Nothing like a full-on renovation, but definitely close. It'd be fun to watch you build a completely new full basement layout from scratch, going through all stages of design and construction. It's pretty much going to be the case with the exception of this layout and the mountain layout. Like, this is all going to be rebuilt and there's going to be so much added on. It's going to basically be a new layout. Are you going to get a new kitty? At some point, I would like to get a cat or possibly a dog, maybe both. Probably not in the near future. Like, this house is not a great space, I think, for a pet. And I also just, want things to be a little bit more stable in my life before I go adding a living being that needs attention and food and everything. So the answer is yes, but just not right now. I was able to bid on a lot today and I won 6 cars. Have you ever been bidding on high bid? I can't say I have. I've never heard of high bid. I wonder if they exist in Canada. Sounds like you gutted the place. Well, there's been a lot of work, that's for sure. The kitchen was a big one because I was noticing there was a lot of bugs around there. And I found out why. It turned out the sink, it's one of those sinks with 2 pipes, and one of the pipes was broken, and so it had actually been dripping water on the plywood below it for a long time. And so silverfish were living there, which would probably explain why there are so many spiders in this house. It's because they had like a great food supply. So anyway, now that that's been repaired, things are a lot better, but I'm glad that I did some work on the kitchen. I wonder why this just stopped. Oh, it's because the trolley derailed and shorted out the layout. But yeah, every day there's been a lot of stuff going on. I have my friend Joey in. He's doing a lot of work on the drywall. It's good to see. As much as the work isn't always fun, it's one of those things where you kind of get instant results. Like you start demolishing the kitchen, it's like, hey, the kitchen's out of here. You throw some paint on a wall, it's like, that looks better. It's one of those things where it's quite linear. How big is the layout? I think right now it's a 4x10. SMT Renovations, the new YouTube channel. Well, some people are probably gonna like hate on me for this too, but for the kitchen, what I did, like all the lower cupboards, I gutted all that, but for the upper cupboards, they were pretty clean. So to save money for the time being, I took all the cabinet doors off them because there were some that were missing. It looked really bad. And I just took some dollar store black paint and I painted the outside of the cupboards and it looks okay. They're not good cupboards, but $3 to renovate your kitchen, not a bad deal, you know? Insulation, so much more is needed in the northern parts. It's not great here in the upper Midwest. Sudden bit of canned air. That was miserable. Yeah, the Canadians all sending up the cold air. Sorry about that. But ever since I got the wood stove, the temperatures have been pretty solid. Right now, I've got the place up to about, 25 Celsius. We're almost up to 80 in Fahrenheit, so it's nice and toasty. Which is good, because this house is definitely not very well insulated. I tore the cupboard doors off my house. They stayed off for 6 months before they got repainted. I enjoyed being able to see everything while they were off. Is that an NYC Hudson pulling the Polar Express cars? I think it's a Niagara. I don't think it's a Hudson. It might look like a Hudson because it doesn't have the smoke deflectors on it. You could cure meat in there. Glad you're enjoying the new house. I just won an AWVR 1206 bid. It looks very similar to a few other models. Did anyone ever sell the AWVR 1206? It's not an official product, but there's a eBay seller called Ginfire 2000 or the Rock and Roll Trains Emporium, and every December he seems to list 777, 767, and 1207. So if it's from that seller, that might be why it looks familiar. He said the number. Well, and I'm not one of these Generation Alpha guys, so I don't know what they're talking about these days. Can you run the problematic Canadian Northern 6234 pulling the Polar Express? I don't know if I have that one. Trolley crashed. I'm making fun of it. I don't find it funny either. I can't keep up with the humor. When I was in high school, it was like, what does the fox say? And I'm trying to think of what else. Minecraft style, stuff like that. It didn't make a lot of sense then, but the stuff today, I don't understand. Psy, yeah, Gangnam Style. Oh boy. You need DCC and sound? I have DCC and sound. I'm glad I don't understand. It can't be good for you. Definitely good to just not. $80 state temps that could keep Chloe happy being around. Fancy igloo does not make that. Oh, this is a fancy igloo. If you can keep your igloo at 80 degrees, the ladies will be happy. It was funny because, you know, there were times in the winter where my parents would go on vacation and I would have their house and I'd keep it pretty cold. You know, I'd keep it about maybe 60. And this one night, you know, I was hosting people and I turned the thermostat up just because I didn't want the ladies to be upset about that. What the HE double hockey sticks is with the 6-7? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but the youngsters, the Generation Alphas, really seem to get a real kick out of that. I think the entire humor is the fact that it perplexes every other generation. I just bought a locomotive for under $100. It was worth $2,000. Sounds like quite the deal. What's the worst item in your collection? I don't think I have it on me right now, but I have this old Lifelike engine and it's pretty tired. Some people who have watched the channel for a while now will know what I'm talking about. I'm a Gen Alpha and I don't get a kick out of it. Yeah, there's even, well, there we go. We have even Gen Alphas in here and they don't like it. There are teachers refusing to say 6-7 now. They're trying to like teach kids like basic math and they have to skip over 2 numbers. I don't even know what generation I'm from. I don't know. I find a lot of people change like what decade everybody's from. Like there's some people that say like if you're a millennial, it means you were born after 2002, and then others say like 1996. So I'm pretty sure I'm a Zoomer, but I don't even know. I think a lot of people change the definition to suit their needs, frankly. You're a Gen Z. Yeah, the Zoomers. I'm just here vibing. There's nothing wrong with that. 97 is when Gen Z started. Yeah, and somebody else is saying 2000. That's what I mean. Like, there doesn't seem to be a definitive point. I think 1996 is kind of a good point, just because I believe that that's the year the internet was created. Are you planning on adding more coaches to the Polar Express? I might. Time for some coffee to stay up. That's a good idea. You're an old soul in a man's body. Not the first time I've heard that. Either you know how to use a VHS player or you don't. I was just on the way, like when the VHS was going out. Like I was kind of in between, but I do remember the VHSs and I remember them well. My parents used to hate this. I'd grab the VHS tapes and yank them out and then they'd have to re-spool them. But I had a lot of fun. A few years ago, my grandparents had me up to their cottage. It's a place from the 50s and they don't have any internet out there. They don't have TV. They don't have anything. The only thing they had was an old TV with a built-in VHS player, and the VHS player did not work. But they had all these old movies, so I was like, I wonder if I just throw something in there and just let it, like, you know, rewind and then go forward, rewind and go forward, if it will get the mechanisms in there working again. And lo and behold, it did. And by the end of the night, we were able to watch Stand By Me, which was, you know, a really good film. But watching it on VHS on an old TV in a 50s cottage, it was just such a time. And it was cool too, because Stand By Me takes place, I think, in 1959, and the cottage was from 1959. And then my grandfather was telling me stories, like when they were building the cottage from the 50s, so it was cool, because it's like you're watching a movie from that era, in a building from that era, with actual stories from that era. Do you know who Crafty Fox is? I've watched some Crafty Fox videos, yeah. I actually featured Crafty Fox in my AI content thief video. My parents say I'm 16, going on 85, love watching the Golden Girls, and I Love Lucy. Love the old trains and the ocean liners. Well, that's a whole variety of eras, but yeah, that's all great stuff. I haven't seen a whole lot of I Love Lucy, but I have seen the Golden Girls, and I like the Olympic in terms of old ships. The internet was actually started in 1983. But when, like, what kind of capacity? Any updates on the Oldsmobile? I haven't been working on it lately. It's just been in winter storage. But before I put it into storage, it was running probably the best it ever has. Around Halloween, I was pretty much daily driving it, because my main driver, it needed a new timing belt, and I was worried I was going to, you know, destroy the engine, so I was driving the Oldsmobile around, and it was great. Gen Z is definitely the generation that loves nostalgia the most. Funny you say that. Nothing about model railroading is cheap, though. Generally, that's true, but if you know where to look, you can actually model railroad pretty cheap. Like every year, In Ottawa, we have the OVR flea market, and there are people just pretty much, they want to throw stuff away, basically. And I've bought engines that are worth like $100 to $200 for like $100 Canadian. So somebody asked me recently, it's like, what's the secret to model railroading cheap? And obviously the first answer is train shows, but the second answer is just being in on the loop. So, you know, get to know people at train clubs, get to know people at hobby shops and stuff like that, because quite often there are train shows that are not very well advertised. They're borderline private, like the OVR flea market. And, you know, if you join a train club, there are usually people trying to get rid of stuff all the time. So if you're willing to work on things, you can definitely get stuff cheap. But yeah, if you want to buy everything brand new and have a pristine layout, you're probably looking at hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars. Thank you so much for the super chat. Look put for the super chat. Lucy from the one episode. How are you doing, Harrison? Do you still have your Go Train BBL set? Also, the 80s music slaps hard for real. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I really like the 80s stuff. I'm always looking on Universal to see if I can find more stuff from old shows and things like that. But yeah, I do still have the Go Transit set. I don't have the Bombardier cars with me. Still got this right here, but I'm slowly bringing things over. If you watch the Polar Express video, there's a time lapse where I'm actually throwing some of the engines I've brought over on the shelf there. What year is most of your stuff from? I'd say the majority of things I own are before 1990. Probably most of my train collection was made before 1990. The boat I have was made before the 90s. The car I have was made before the 90s. This house was made before the 90s. A few dollars towards the layout. Thank you so much, Norm Corey. Got another super chat here. Hey, SMT, I let 1206 let away on the last minute. I have to create a custom built one, but I need help with a locomotive for it. Get yourself an old Athearn SD40-2. Really, any old SD40-2 should do the job. I really like seeing the WTC in movies, photos. Yeah, it's really a shame. I wish I had got to see the original buildings. I saw the new one 2 years ago in New York. And it was an impressive place, but I was 6 months old when all that happened, so I don't remember it myself. But if nobody's ever seen the movie The Walk, definitely a worthwhile watch. Where do you recommend buying HO scale trains online for under $50? Online, I don't really find there's much of a solution for that. Sometimes good deals will pop up on eBay, but generally when I buy something cheap, it's either at a train store, a train show, or like a flea market. If anybody knows any good places to buy used trains online cheap, feel free to share them in the comments, but personally, I don't find it's the spot to look for deals. How's 1206 running? I don't know if I've brought it over yet, but last time I ran it, it was great. What are the next 10 years going to be like for model railroading? Do you see any big changes, or is it pretty static? My prediction is that we're probably going to see some more manufacturers close, maybe some long-lasting names in the industry. I don't think that the hobby is going to be in decline, though. I think that so long as there's an interest in trains, there's always going to be an interest in model railroading. And I think that we're going to see 3D printing breathe a lot of new life into the hobby. I think we're going to see a lot of really small manufacturers, like homebrew manufacturers, start up. And I think that that's going to be where a lot of the industry is going to be at. You forgot to read my super chat. Let me have a look there, Ed. I'm sorry I didn't see that pop up. Oh, there it is. Will we see a streetcar line on the new layout in the near future? Can we get a street view? Absolutely. Let me see if I can find a good streetcar to run. Probably a PCC. F in the chat for when that happens to Hornby. I hope it doesn't. I mean, Hornby is a very big name internationally, if you include the other brands they have, like River Rossi. I hope they can remain in business, but there's a lot of manufacturers where I think that, you know, if like you ignore your audience for long enough and you overprice things and you don't give them the products they want, eventually that's going to catch up, you know? But I do hope as many manufacturers can stay in business as possible, and it's not entirely hopeless too. I mean, Aurora was, I think, started in 2020, so they're a fairly new manufacturer. Rapido was started in 2003, so they're relatively new. So there are manufacturers who are starting business today, but I think the big difference is that they're taking risks and they're making models that people really want, whereas a lot of the legacy manufacturers are just kind of rehashing the same thing. Like they'll just re-release old tooling with added detail or something like that and then call it a day. And I don't think that that is what a lot of people want. Here's the street running. Holy crap, somebody donated $100. Thank you so much, Scott Hubbard. Congratulations on the new house. I hope this helps. I'll put it towards something good around here. There's definitely a million things eating up the cash, so I really do appreciate that. That's insane. Christmas competition a no-go? I'm going to try hard to make that happen. It's like Mr. Beast donating in here. Yeah, pretty much. Electric Railway Productions, thank you so much for the super chat. Looking for any trains at the moment? If so, I have a few for sale. Well, if you want to send a link, I'd be happy to have a look. I'm not personally on the hunt for anything in particular. I never really am, except the green Hiawatha. I used to watch Sam's Trains, but I graduated to SMT. I don't like to view it as a competition, honestly. Like, I'm really happy with where the channel has gone, but I don't know. I don't think things have to be one channel or the other, honestly. Class 1 model works and scale trains are really thriving, especially with the Class 1 releasing locomotives with the side doors and rotating fans. That's just it. Like, these new modern manufacturers are, you know, taking a lot of risk. They're making products that haven't been seen before, and people are eating it up. So they're doing something right. I think that the legacy brands don't want to take the financial risk of, you know, putting a lot of research and development into a new product, which might not sell well. But I think it fundamentally is worth it for them. What is the most common repair done on a vintage engine that gets it back up and running? Cleaning the commutator. The commutator fouls up with carbon and it ends up being, you know, a single piece of metal instead of, you know, 3 or 5 different pieces of metal. And that's one big problem. Another big problem is old oil. You know, lubricants dry out and they start to seize the model up. Then more lubrication. Yeah, exactly. Pretty much the only two things that can change on a locomotive are the lubricants drying out and the metal oxidizing. Provided it hasn't been dropped or something else has happened, those are the things that get to an engine. Because there are some people that, you know, put a locomotive in storage for 40 years and then they want to bring it out for their grandchildren or their kid or something like that, and they try to run it. And there's a pretty good chance that it will start, but if it's running slow at full power, that's a really bad sign. Or sometimes it doesn't start because things were in a damp environment. So, you know, provided you take care of those two things, probably 99% of the time you'll get your locomotive back, but definitely throw some new oil in it. Another super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat, EMDF49. Meme moment, the Milwaukee Road. Have a good night, Harrison. What's the meme about the Milwaukee Road? Split axle gears in Athearn, blue box and ready to roll engines. I've only seen bad gears in maybe 1 or 2 Athearns. They're pretty good. The proto engines definitely have that problem a little bit more. What's been your most costly repair? My most costly repair was fixing up my grandmother's Atlantic. Not the Hiawatha, but the other one she had. I think when all was said and done, I had put about 500 Canadian into that engine. The parts are high quality, but they're made in Italy, probably by 1 or 2 guys, and they charge an arm and a leg, and then when you have to pay the shipping and the taxes, so on and so forth, it adds up to an awful lot. It was totally worth it, though, you know, just seeing her reaction to getting that engine going again, and, you know, actually having it as part of the collection was amazing. Broken Bachmann gears will happen sooner or later. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. The modern ones are better for it. Thank you so much for the super chat. Your average SoCal Rail fan 54. %90 of used Athearn Blue Box engine I have axle gears that were cracked when I got them. That's strange. I've seen it a couple times in my collection, but I have a lot of old Blue Box engines, and that's not a very common problem. I have seen it on a lot of proto stuff, though, especially the late 80s, early 90s stuff when they were just getting started. They were notorious for that. With the sale of microtrains, do you think Atlas will take more of a market share overall? If they can continue to expand the brand, maybe. I find what a lot of manufacturers seem to do is that they buy out their competition and then they kind of deplete the brand. Like River Rossi used to be a massive name in the hobby, and under Hornby, you know, they have a line of products, but they're not the same company that they once were. So, I don't know. It's hard to say if Atlas is going to expand it or if they're just going to kind of, you know, join it into the rest of the company. I've been lucky to have a number of Bachmann locomotives that don't have pancakes. You should make an N-scale layout with an amusement park. Well, the plan is to add the N-Scale engine under the mountain layout, because this is all going to be expanded, so we're going to add onto there. And then I think, you know those like sliders you use for drawers? I want to put some of those under the layout, and then we could have the N-Scale layout actually slide out into this area. Is there any manufacturers you don't like or can't stand? I don't think that there's a single brand I can't stand. A lot of people will know that Bachmann is not my favorite brand, but there are exceptions to that. Like, I actually like their, cheaper train sets just because they help get people into the hobby. But a lot of the modern brands, like especially the legacy brands, like if we're talking about Atlas or Athearn, I don't find they're big innovators, but they don't make a bad product. Like, I really like my Athearn engines, my modern ones, and same goes with my modern Atlas engines. Like, there's nothing really to hate about them. There's just nothing new. I love the older Rivarossi passenger cars, the Pullmans. They're solid. One thing I really like about Rivarossi is that they cared a lot about making sure that stuff could actually stay on the track. And people will make fun of old Rivarossi stuff. They'll say, oh, it's got the pizza cutter flanges, which just means like the flanges are massive. But they stay on the track really well. I usually do not have trouble with them. Add Z-Scale to the layout as a kid's train. I've strongly considered doing that in the farm scene, like having a train going around with a bunch of people seated on it. We'll see. Thoughts on Bowser products? I don't own a crazy amount of Bowser stuff, but again, nothing wrong with the product line. I haven't seen any crazy innovation from them either, but they're solid. Athearn Blue Box, Atlas, and Roco engines are the Mack trucks of trains. I agree with that. Very reliable stuff. Can you run the SMT Berkshire locomotive with Amtrak passenger cars? I can't run it with the Amtrak passenger cars, but I'd be happy to throw the SMT Berkshire in front of the Polar Express cars. They had to branch out into a plumbing company. Is that true? Is Rivarossi a good manufacturer? I always hear about them, so they have to be at least decent. I don't have any models from them yet. In present day, they're just a division of Hornby. So I don't know as much about the quality. Older Rivarossi stuff it's not going to be the most detailed, and it's not going to be the most reliable just because of the age of all the products. But they're not bad. If you're willing to tighten up the bolts on the drivers on their steam engines, or just throw some oil in them, they'll be reliable. I've got a lot of old Rivarossis, and they've never let me down. But it's technology that's dating back 30, 40, sometimes 70 years. So if you're willing to work on them, they can be fine. But is it guaranteed reliable? I wouldn't say so. What brand do you think is innovative? I think Aurora is innovative. I think Rapido is fairly innovative. I'm sure there's some others out there I'm missing. It's a joke because the brand is called Bowser. Okay, I get it. That went right over my head. Is Kato a good brand? I would say so. I find a lot of people in the community seem to really like them, especially people who are into N-scale stuff. They love Kato. They're made in Japan. They definitely care about their product. I personally don't care about the details of a model so long as they run good, I'm happy. I tend to agree with that. I mean, I really like my scale trains models. Like, you know, they got incredible detail, but I think reliability is more important for a lot of people. When do you think you'll expand the layout? Probably in January, February. Thank you for putting on the Berkshire. Yeah, no problem. How do you think 3D printing has changed the model railroad community? In some ways for better. I think if you're after something really specific, there's an opportunity to make it yourself or buy it from somebody. And there's also a lot of 3D printed parts coming on the market. In terms of quality, I don't think it's there yet. I've heard bad stories about the 3D printed parts for old Bachmann engines and things like that. So I think right now we're kind of in the pioneer phase of 3D printing, but give it 5-10 years, and I think that 3D printing is really going to rule the day for model railroading. Kato is amazing, very well detailed. Wheels are always engaged from the factory. Super readily available, yeah. You missed a super chat. Let me have a look. Thanks, SMT. You and your channel have rekindled my interest in model railroading. Thank you so much, Zacto. How's the new house doing? Not bad. I was just talking about some of the renovations I've been doing on the place earlier. I think 3D printing is good for buildings. I agree with that. For anything that's static, like a locomotive shell or a building or a figure or anything, I think 3D printing is already there. It's just for actual mechanical parts. Maybe some people who are really talented with 3D printing and know what to use in terms of the resins and stuff, maybe in those cases they can do it right, but some of the current 3D printed parts are not great. What are your thoughts on Hot Pockets or pizza rolls? I don't think I've ever had Hot Pockets or pizza rolls. I do cook my fair share of frozen pizzas and things like that. I love those. I love pizza, but yeah, I don't think I ever had a Hot Pocket. Pizza rolls are 100% the best. I wish I could have an opinion. I don't recall ever having them. Gotta try Hot Pockets. We need replicators like on Star Trek. That would be ideal. 1960s and 70s Rivarossi engines were great for the price, especially the smaller old-time locomotives. Yeah, and personally, Rivarossi has like a spot in my heart because, you know, two of my grandmother's engines were made by them, and I was able to get one going with the original motor. Like, they're definitely well made. I just don't find they hold together very well. If you never had Hot Pockets or pizza rolls, you're missing out. Hot Pockets are good for breakfast when you don't have Pop-Tarts. I had my fair share of Pop-Tarts, but I think for me when I was a kid, it was either eggs or Eggos. A lot of Eggos as a kid. My main beef with old River Rossi was the weird scale. They do a beautiful LMS locomotive, but the coaches are 1 in 80. What am I supposed to do with that? I guess just build the rest of the layout to 1 in 80. But yeah, you definitely do see a difference. Like my grandmother's Hiawatha is 1 in 80, and it definitely looks a little bit out of scale compared to my 1 in 87th scale Fox Valley counterpart. Are River Rossi and IHC the same? Yes and no. IHC was a distributor, so they were kind of like Walthers, where they had a house brand, but they also had other brands from companies that they sold. So like you'll see AHM locomotives and they come in AHM packaging, but if you look at the engine itself, it says River Rossi on it. So they were being sold under IHC, but they weren't being made by IHC, if that makes sense. Oatmeal and cream of wheat for breakfast when I was a kid. Quaker Oats is legendary. You mix the apple Quaker Oats with the cinnamon brown sugar, and yeah, that's a good breakfast there. Healthy stuff too. I got to ride the Polar Express on the Texas State Railroad last Friday. That sounds like fun. I like pizza rolls, but does anybody think Lionel should give us an N-scale Polar Express, or at least Bachmann or Kato? I imagine there would be enough of a N-scale market for that. I like how we went from talking about trains to food for a little bit. Best conversation I've ever had. That's what happens on here. It's either trains or cars or movies or boats or food or music. Where are the railroad crossing lights? That's another thing I have to move over here. It's probably going to go in that corner right there with the AC/DC poster. SMT, I have a question. Well, feel free to ask. The IHC locomotives don't have traction tires like AHM River Rossi. It's a bit cheaper. IHC might have actually been made by Mahano, but I don't know. At one point, it seems like around the 80s and 90s, every manufacturer was either stealing designs or sharing designs with each other. There was a lot of rebadging going on. Definitely a funny time in the hobby. I know that Lionel for a while was also selling River Rossi products, which was a pretty good idea because River Rossi at the time didn't have much of a leg in the American market. Lionel did in terms of O-scale. They were a well-established American name, so it kind of worked well for both brands, where you have a brand that's trying to get into the States, a brand that's already well-established in the States, but that doesn't make HO scale stuff, so they made a deal for a while. The Thomas line sucks. We ain't kiddies, but I have nothing against Thomas. I loved that show as a kid. But yeah, personally, I don't feel the need to add any of the Thomas stuff to my layout. You missed the question. Which question? I got to see a Canadian Pacific diesel. Not sure what kind of locomotive. A few weeks ago, it was amazing. Why is it so difficult to fix Arnold N-scale locomotives? I haven't worked on many, but I tend to agree with that. I haven't had the best luck with River Rossi heavyweights. All of them have had coupler castings fall off. Yeah, well, zinc pest was a pretty common issue with those models. Lionel prices are way out of control for how much they pay. They put triple the prices on each car. I think Lionel cashes in on the fact that fundamentally it's a legendary brand, and also the fact that, you know, they make a lot of products like the Polar Express, which people want. But from a detail standpoint, I completely agree. OGs will remember the Brio Polar Express. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I ever saw it. I don't even think I had any Brio stuff growing up. I either had, for like the wooden railways when I was a kid, I either had Thomas stuff or I had off-brand train stuff from Walmart. I still have all of that somewhere in a box at my parents' place. If I ever have a kid, I'll dig it out and they can enjoy all that. Did you hear that the SS United States is going to be sunk off the coast of Florida to become an artificial reef? I did see that in the news, yeah. Have you ever heard of the tri-cab rail horns? If you haven't, look up the vid. I'll have to do that later. Follow-up question, have you ever heard of the SS America? If you haven't, Sunbright Films has a documentary on it. It's definitely worth a good watch. I'd be happy to watch that. I have heard of the SS United States, but I don't know a whole lot about it, so yeah, it'd be good. I do like Sunbright Films, though, especially their videos on malls. Are you taking suggestions for running different locomotives? Yeah, absolutely. SMT, I have a question. Well, if anybody has a question, just throw it in the comments. You don't have to ask permission to ask questions, just as long as there's nothing unsavory about it. You should try to fix a Proto 2000 model at some point. I've done it before. There's some videos on the channel, but yeah, I'd be happy to work on more Proto. I should probably make a video specifically on how to fix the wheels on those locomotives, because that's a problem which I'm sure a lot of people have faced. Is new Athearn just as good as older Athearn? I don't want to give a roundabout question, but it's kind of a yes and no, because the modern Athearn engines use a lot of the same parts the Blue Box ones do. So from a drivetrain standpoint, they're very similar, but a lot of them also have electronics like DCC on board and a circuit board that the DCC decoder plugs into. So are they going to be as reliable in the long run as a Blue Box? Probably not, because there's a risk any one of those electronic components can go bad. But if you just bypassed all the electronics and went straight to the locomotive, yes, I would say that they are about as reliable as the Blue Boxes were. What are the plans to keep your Waffle House open? I don't know, but we're going to have to get electricity running to it. Has your grandmother been to the new house yet? My grandmother on my mom's side has been. My grandmother on my dad's side hasn't, but I want to have them over at some point over the holidays. And I'll also have to have the third set of grandparents over. He has it running right now. Well, this one technically is the SMT mainline Polar Express 1221. Frankly, it looks better than the Lionel model. Norm Corey did a good job. Metro 156, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you accept this gift for your quest towards the new permanent shelter? I do, thank you. The way I look at it, there was a point in the mid to late 2000s where Athearn wasn't very good, but nowadays they're just as good as Blue Box in my opinion. I couldn't really say because I wasn't in the hobby in the early 2000s. I do have some locomotives from the late 2000s from Athearn, and again, they have pretty much the same driveline components as Athearn, but as the Blue Box Athearns, but I do know that it was around 2008 where Athearn discontinued the Blue Box line and started up their Ready to Roll line. And so I don't know if maybe getting the new factory going, they might have had some production issues. Hey SMT, I saw your video on the Polar Express. I was wondering if you ever saw Trainstorm's custom HO Polar Express. If not, watch it. I haven't seen that video, but I'll for sure look it up. What happened to K-Line? I don't know, to be honest. Hey SMT, are you looking into the new Rapido CL-RV streetcars for your streetcar line? I have seen some of the videos of those. I'm not sure if I'm gonna buy one or not. I don't know. Athearn is top of the line, if I remember correctly. I don't know today if I would consider them the greatest brand, but they're high on my list. They're really well made. Like, I think Scale Trains, in terms of detail, definitely has the edge. I think Rapido has the edge over Athearn. But do they make a bad product? No, they're still good. There's a bit of a meme with Athearn, though, which is that they just, every year, re-release the same item and they call it new. There was a point between 2005 and 2011 where Athearn had a lot of issues, but most of them have been corrected, although they do still have some detail issues to iron out. Yeah, we got DB Tech in here. Welcome. Intermountain is doing great things. They seem to be doing a good job. I don't hear a lot of bad things about Intermountain. I like croissants, especially chocolate ones. Yes, SMT, we're Uno reversing this conversation again. Now about croissants. Do you have any Saskatchewan or Manitoba cars, gas tankers or whatever? It'd be cool to see those run. I definitely have some tankers again. Probably more stuff at my parents' house. I haven't brought a lot of the rolling stock over yet. I can say that driving through Saskatchewan, though, holy crap, those oil trains are long. It really gives you an idea of just how much oil is burned when you're driving beside one of those trains and it just goes on for like miles. Like, there are times where one of those trains, we'd be on the highway and the train would be going the opposite direction and we'd be going about, 90 kilometers an hour, and it would take quite a while to get past that train. Let's make sure I'm not missing super chats here. think we're good. Have you thought about putting a miniature Christmas tree on top of the set like they do in big city centers? I guess I could throw that on the layout. K-Line copied a Lionel Transformer design and Lionel sued them out of business. Whoa. Well, that's all news to me. I have not heard any of this. That's wild. I think the reason Athearn hasn't really changed much is a mix of Blue Box being goated, and there was a gap when the GEVO came out to where nothing was getting on new rosters. Yeah, well, just like Lionel, I think it's a legendary brand. It's got the name working for it, so I think that that's part of the reason. But I also, again, I think a lot of the legacy brands, they just don't want to reinvest. Like, let's just take some old tooling out of storage, we'll throw more details on it, we'll call it a day. And again, it doesn't mean it's a bad product, it will usually work, but there's no innovation there. You repaired an old kit Doodlebug a couple years back. I have one by Bachmann that is very difficult to open. Let me see if I have mine here, because I have opened one of those before. The one I have, the whole inside is actually like part of the chassis, so maybe that's what you're talking about. I guess I haven't brought that over either. There's a lot of equipment I'm going to have to haul over here. Athearn is the spitting image of the phrase, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. What's your favorite Christmas movie? Mine is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That's a classic. My all-time favorite Christmas movie is Rudolph. I think it's an excellent movie. It's, I think, held the test of time very well. And I think the story is great. I like Christmas Story too. That one's pretty entertaining. The Charlie Brown Christmas is good too. That was definitely well made. Everyone put your favorite Christmas movies in the comments though. I'm curious to hear. Polar Express. The Polar Express is high on my list, especially since I saw it as a kid. National Lampoon's Christmas. I mean, the National Lampoon's movies are great, but I'm surprised that it's being mentioned so much as a favorite Christmas movie. Christmas Vacation again. The Grinch with Jim Carrey. That was hilarious. Some people hate on that movie. I think that they actually did a pretty good job with the Grinch. 2001 Grinch. Christmas Vacation again, wow. Home Alone. Charlie Brown. Christmas Story. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. I don't think I have. Die Hard. Die Hard's a good movie. I feel like there's always a debate whether or not it is a Christmas movie or a movie that was filmed around Christmas. Jingle All the Way. I don't think I've seen that one. I would love to see a red and green train made. Like the Red Green Show, or like red green, like just literally red and green. I love the debate about Die Hard though. It's not controversial at all, but it's fun having people debate something that's so silly, low stakes. Yeah, I agree with that. It's another Cola Wars situation, like if Pepsi or Coke is better. iPhone, Android, you name it. Train made out of duct tape. I guess that's what you would do to make red green. What if you like Dr. Pepper instead of Coke or Pepsi? That's like liking Linux over Windows or Mac OS X. Well, I'm stunned. I guess National Lampoon's Vacation is the best Christmas movie. It seems to be getting mentioned like every other comment. If Mythbusters can make a functioning boat out of duct tape. It was funny because Mythbusters did an entire episode about duct tape, but they also did an episode where they actually added the dimples off a golf ball onto a car to see if it would improve the aerodynamic efficiency of the car, and it did. But a lot of people pointed out that the Red Green Show had actually done that as a joke, I think 5 years or 10 years before. Can you paint the wall like a forest and have a waterfall onto the layout? I don't know if I'm going to do anything like that, but I am kind of tempted to put more seasons that look like this up on the wall. Why the original owners had this installed, I don't know, but there's something very happy about it. Love your videos. What are some good starter HO scale locos you'd suggest for an absolute beginner like me? If you want to buy something brand new, I'd probably get a Walters Trainline GP15. You can find them on Amazon. They're usually like 80 bucks. Sometimes they go for as little as 65. And they're really solid locomotives for the money. I own a few of them myself, and they got directional lighting. They don't have DCC or anything like that, but for just really basic engines, I think they're wonderful. Get a winter in there. Have additional looks at the seasons. That's sort of what I was thinking. Like, have one where it's summer and then another one where, you know, it's the springtime. Another one where it's winter, although all I have to do is look out the winter every day. All I have to do is look out the window every day, and I get to see that, so I don't know. Walthers is great for diesels. Mahano is great for steamers. I tend to agree with that. The Red Green Show is still going. It's on YouTube. Yeah, they've done a pretty good job at remaining relevant. It's very popular. You can also slightly overinflate the tires and increase the mileage a bit, but it will destroy the tires fast and mess up the drivability. Yeah, for sure. In Canada, at least in Ontario, they actually have signs on the highways telling people to make sure their tires are not overinflated, because obviously the more air you have in your tires, the less your car grips the road. And so if it snows outside, then you have a mess on your hands. Do you have snow? Yeah, we have like a foot of snow on the ground. It's way earlier than usual. Did you get to see the Canadian Pacific Kansas City holiday train? I sure did. Who remembers Filthy Frank? I think anybody who was watching YouTube back in 2016 probably knows all about that. The layout looks like the one half is spring. I mean, that's a good idea, frankly. I could just have the layout take place in spring in Canada, where we have snow until like April, and it can be both winter and spring at the same time. It's going to be a white Christmas this year. Yeah, no doubt. Going to be out riding ski-doos for New Year's. There's no doubt about that. There was, every New Year's I usually go up to my girlfriend's cottage, and there was one year, usually we go out riding ski-doos around. There was one year where there was so little snow on the ground where we were actually just riding ATVs and stuff around, and I brought up my $180 mini bike and was driving that around, having a great time. But the little bit of snow on the ground actually got into the brakes, and then it froze, and the bike was seized out in the middle of the forest. That was fun, but yeah, great. Still a great New Year's. I came back to this channel from a while away. Is this replacing the old layout? Yeah, sort of. So if you haven't seen the videos, basically I moved the layout into this new house, and this original layout is remaining, but the rest of it is all pretty much being rebuilt from the ground up. Snow until April. I will never complain about winter in Kentucky again. I guess it's nothing to you because you're used to it. Some winters are so bad we have snow until early May. There was one, and my birthday's in about, mid-April, and there was one April where we had a snowstorm in the middle of April. Dunderville is turning into Dunderberg or Dundertropolis. You could have the fall scene going around the layout in front of the fall trees. Something like that. I might add some fall trees to the mountain layout and then have that as the backdrop. But I wasn't planning on getting rid of this, but it was funny because I think the second live stream I did when I went to go see the holiday train, there were at least 2 comments making sure I wasn't planning on painting over this. It must be nice having snow. I live in mid-NC where the snow is rare and everything shuts down when it accumulates any. I don't know. I mean, the snow can be nice. Like, if you're in a snowmobiling or skiing or anything like that, it's a good time. Having a shovel all the time and stuff is not as fun, but it is interesting how different places deal with snow, because last January when, I'm trying to remember the name, Intertrainment Junction in Cincinnati was about to close. It was going to close on January 5th, and there was a snowstorm coming, so I had to make a choice. Are we going to drive through the snowstorm and get to see this place, or are we just going to be okay with the fact that it's going to close and that's going to be the last time we ever see it? So I rolled the dice and we went driving through there. And having a Canadian car, I have all-wheel drive and I also have snow tires. And it was insane being around Cincinnati where a lot of people are driving with all-season tires and with two-wheel drive. There were trucks, like pickup trucks and SUVs and stuff that were getting stuck. And I was in a sedan and I wasn't having those problems. But I mean, up here, it's actually the law to have winter tires, so it's just normal. But I guess in, a lot of the Midwest, it's a little bit warmer, and so it's just not as big a concern. Are those new white panels on the walls? I haven't put them up yet. I'm just trying to stop the reverb. So when I was trying to film a video the other day, it was actually the Polar Express. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a bit of a reverb, and I think it's from that wall right there. Did you hear about the new Via train that broke down and got stranded for 13 hours en route to Ottawa a couple weeks ago? Yeah, that has been the talk of the town. People I know who are not even in the trains have been discussing that. I'm still wondering what happened though, because a lot of people were saying that the train, I guess it had blocked the second train, and the second train that it blocked actually ended up picking up the stalled train. So I'm just wondering why they waited so long to do that. Like, I feel like 13 hours is a long time. I don't know why they couldn't have sent even like a freight diesel or something to go rescue the train. It lived right next to Entertainment Junction, but I heard the good news about them moving the layout to Chattanooga, Tennessee for Motion Museum. I hope that all goes well. I still have to upload the video of Entertainment Junction. I'm hoping to upload it over the holidays, because it was all decorated for Christmas when I went in January. And so uploading it then didn't seem right. But I have it all edited. I just need to narrate it. When do you think you'll work on the other parts of the layouts? I suspect it's all going to be in January, February. It's probably not going to be too much more in December. I mean, we're getting really close to the end of the month, first of all. But second of all, you got Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff. It's going to soak up too much time. But I think in January, once things calm down a little bit, I don't see why not. It's going to be a good time. It's going to be freezing cold outside every day, so probably just kind of hide out down here and work on the layout. When do you think the housework will be done? It depends what phase. Right now, it's just getting the house to more of a livable point, but there isn't really a limit as to how far, money could be poured into this place or time could be poured into this place. It's just a matter of how much I kind of want to do on it, because the truth is this house is never going to be worth more than it already is, even though I've improved the condition. So I don't know. I feel like if I tried to sell it, people would probably be more interested in buying it to demolish it than they would be in buying the building. Work is never done on a house. Definitely not on this place. If you were on the Titanic after it hit the iceberg, what would you do to survive? I would take as many of those deck chairs, the wooden deck chairs, and try to just make a giant pile of them, a really big pile of them, and try to build a makeshift flotation device. I doubt it would work, but you can't hate a guy for trying. Are you staying there now? Yeah, I've been living here. Got a bed, I've got a kitchen. Will it be your forever home? I hope so. We'll see what happens. What does your girlfriend think of the house? She likes it. I have to give her credit for that too, because I like it. But there are parts of the, like, this room doesn't look bad. This is all acceptable in my opinion. There's some other parts of this house which are not very pretty right now, so good on her for not being disgusted by it. I would push Rose off the board. There was a man on the Titanic named Charles who drank a bunch of alcohol, and he survived for around 2 hours in 28-degree water because the alcohol warmed his body enough to be numb to it. I've heard that story. Maybe his senses were so bad that he didn't go into thermal shock, but when you take your boating course, the first thing that they tell you is that if somebody is experiencing hypothermia, do not give them anything to drink because it can actually make that worse. So I don't know. He might have just been lucky. Are you adding more to the layout for the basement, making it bigger? Definitely so. The plan right now is to add, an entire shelving unit along here for the trains, but I also want to run a track which is actually going to go under here where the staircase is, and then it's going to go throughout the entire basement because there are other rooms in here. Now, I can't expand the basement in terms of removing walls. These are both load-bearing, so those are there to stay, but there's definitely some workarounds to at least get trains operating throughout the rest of the house. Have you ever seen the deleted scene from the Polar Express that explains the hobo ghost on top of the train? It's funny you say that because if you watch the review I did on the Polar Express, I actually mentioned that exact story. I don't know why they removed it from the film. I think it would have actually been a terrific part of the movie. At least you own a home and you're in the market. It's nice to be putting money into your home rather than paying rent. That's just it, and I really hope that things get better because I know around the world, it's not just in Canada that housing prices are expensive, and so is rent and everything else. I fundamentally hope that the fact that I've bought a house crashes the entire market so that people can afford stuff. But my concern is that things are not going to get better, and the prices are going to continue to climb. And if they do, it's just going to become harder and harder to accomplish this. So, even though I feel like I've taken on a bit more than I can chew, I'm taking that risk just because if I don't take the risk now, it could be a bigger one later. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, even with some of the problems this place has had, I still love it. Are you gonna end up converting more trains to DCC? Probably so. A lot of the older engines are never going to be converted, but there are some modern ones, like some of my Walthers ones, which I think would probably be great. You could cut holes in the paneling. The thing is, the wood paneling is covering up brick, so like that is a cement wall right behind that paneling there. That's why it's so thick. Is Lionel still provided by Bachmann? I didn't hear that. I thought that Lionel just made their own products for HO. I didn't know that Bachmann produced them. In my area, rent is $2,000 a month. Yeah, it's the same here. It's very, very expensive. Real estate always goes up. Fundamentally, yeah. What's your favorite Tyco train? Probably the Golden Eagle. It's pretty epic. I think it's the 630. Century 630 model. hope I'm not misquoting the number, but yeah, Golden Eagle, a really epic one. They're kind of rare too, you know, they only made them, I think, for 2 years. Can you run the cab forward if you have it unpacked? I have it unpacked. Unfortunately, in the last live stream I tried to run it, it did not work very well. I don't know what's the matter with it. I have a Lionel Polar Express G-Scale ready to play, but it hasn't run on my track. It's in storage right now. Also, rent in my area for a one-bedroom apartment is on average $1,200. Yeah, it's crazy. Do you have any model trees? Those might look good on your layout. I have some. I just haven't set them up ever since I moved. I'm lucky my bedroom in a house I rent with 7 other people is 1,100 split between my partner and I. I went through an abandoned horse farm and they had this big train layout. I found an old Tyco stuff, and that's what got me started with trains. I used to be really obsessed when I was younger. I think that has got to be the most unique way to get into model railroading I think I've ever heard. It's pretty cool though. What if you added rock climbers on the side of your tunnel? I could definitely do that. I've got friends who are big into rock climbing. They've climbed the Chief out in British Columbia. I've done some rock climbing myself, probably only about 100 feet high, but it's a pretty cool thing. Even the indoor rock climbing, if anybody's ever done that, it's a very exciting sport. It's something I should probably get into more because it's also really good for your health. But yeah, rock climbers are they're a cool bunch. Are you adding lights to the layout? Absolutely. I already have about 6 of them going right now, but I can definitely get the rest of them going. Would you ever think about building a layout around the edge of the room? That seems to be a more common thing in the UK due to a lack of space. Absolutely. I want to put basically bench work all the way here into that corner, down here, right through there. So there's definitely going to be some bench work added. I think it's going to work well. Is it bad for my Bachmann Burlington Northern diesel to smell electric? I'm new to HO scale and all that. If it smells like it's burning, that's bad. A lot of older engines will have a bit of an ozone smell, but cleaning the motor will usually fix that. But I don't find that ozone smells burnt. It's a distinct smell. You kind of have to recognize it. But if it smells like something's burning, like it's very chemically smell, stop running it. You're probably cooking the coils. producing ozone is good for the atmosphere, at least. Yeah, I've probably contributed to like a third of it just running trains down here. Theoretically, how would one fix cooked coils? You can't. If your motor overheats, sometimes the coils still work and you can still run the train. But there are other times, the coils have a very thin layer of insulation on them. If you burn that off, power starts flowing ways it shouldn't. Sometimes it's not that bad and you can just keep running the motor. Like I've had some engines which definitely have slightly shorted coils, but they continue to run. But there's another, layer to that where the coil is damaged so badly it overheats every time you run it, and then eventually it's just going to get to the point where the coil gets so hot the wires actually melt, and then that's it. You're done. You can rewind the motor, but that's a pretty complicated process. So really, if you burn out your motor so bad that it will not run, the only thing you can do at that point is to replace it. SMT is trying to take Captain Planet's spot and saving the planet. Yeah, on Earth Day, I should just get out all my worst diesels and we just run the snot out of them. Just get as much ozone down here as possible. It's going to be great. Do you plan to add an outdoor line to this home? I'm not sure. I could definitely probably do a line from the front yard to the backyard or something like that with G-scale, but yeah, I don't know what I want to do with that. The Burlington was not running nice. It's been in a box for 15 years, apparently. Well, it could be that the lubricants have dried out and the motor is overheating, but honestly, when a motor has been sitting for a while, it's not uncommon for it to have a bit of an ozone smell, just because there's, a lot of oxidization, which creates more sparks, and then you get that funny smell. Which is better, Athearn or Atlas? I think that Athearn is not as reliable as Atlas, but the Athearns are easier to work on. I like Athearn more than Atlas, but I don't know. Atlas might be a bit better reliability-wise. Amazing idea for you. How about you cut an HO scale tunnel in one of your walls to the outdoors? We're going to track to the wall for the indoor layout. Well, I don't even think I'd have to cut a hole in the wall. If I could just get the trains to run up high enough, I could just run them out the window, which is currently covered up because this is one pane glass and it's letting a lot of heat out. But yeah, there's definitely some ways we could make that work. Have you ever remagnetized your motors in HO scale? I have a remagnetizer. I don't use it terribly often, but it does help. It makes me sad that trains don't have a caboose anymore. I wish they did too. It must have been a great time working for the railroad back in the day, riding around in one of those cabooses. Playing cards with your buddies. In Ottawa, the Museum of Science and Technology has a caboose, and it's not open to the public, but they open it occasionally, and they also open it for special events. And when I was a kid, I had a birthday party at the Science Museum, and they let us go inside the caboose and walk around and everything. And It's just so cool. Like, it had a mini wood stove, and there were these beds. They wouldn't let you touch the beds because they're made of old horsehair, and if apparently if they're trotted on, like if people sit on them, the horsehair is so old it will just come apart. So there were certain parts of it that were off limits, but it was amazing getting to go in one of those old cars. Like the Chesapeake on Fire, you didn't use the remagnetizer on that. I have used the remagnetizer on the Chesapeake on Fire, but originally I didn't. I think the Chesapeake on Fire, though, the problem with that engine, again, was the commutator. The commutator is the problem with the motor 9 times out of 10. It's pretty rare the magnet is what's failed. My old 1960s AHM wouldn't move to the point where it started smoking, and then it ran really fast around the track to the point where it almost flew off the track, then it stopped moving, but the light still works. Yeah, sometimes that's a symptom of a motor going bad. If you could, would you expand your train layout? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now I do have the ability to expand it, so it's not really a matter of whiff. I'm getting too tired. It's not really a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Whiff. Here in the Northwest Indiana, there are food stands built into cabooses that are on sets of tracks. I don't know if it was specific to the area, but one thing that a lot of people who are about my parents' age have really fond memories of is the Ronald McDonald caboose. Some of the McDonald's in the area had an old train caboose, and you could get access to it for birthday parties and things like that. I don't know if that was a local franchise thing or if they had those in other places. Hi from Michigan. Are you planning on doing any repair videos in the near future? The answer is yes. Lots of stuff to repair. Question is just, what should I get to first? I just saw a video with a caboose on it. The brakes might have to stop the train progressively going on the cars while it was moving. Yeah, I think on the trains in the 1800s, I don't know when the air brakes were added to trains, but I've seen videos of that where people had to jump from car to car to manually apply the brakes. I just got a whole ton of N-scale trains for free, SMT. Oh, good for you. Can you run the Chesapeake on Fire? If it's over here. Gonna have to make a list. Top priority trains to haul over. Yeah, I don't think the Chesapeake on Fire is here. Can you run a Canadian Pacific steamer if you have one? Yeah, sure. Okay, so it turns out I don't actually have any Canadian Pacific steam locomotives over here. I've got some Canadian Nationals, though, so, you know, I might not be able to deliver Coke, but we do have Pepsi. Hopefully I'll get the address right the first time this time. Can you run the daylight? We can try to do that in a minute. What engine number is that? 6234? If I could mail you the same 60s AHM that we talked about with some money, would you restore it for me? I don't do repairs that involve shipping anymore. I used to years ago, but I had to stop. It was leading to a lot of issues. Uh-oh. The engine looks really good with Polar Express cars. I agree. I'm going for the rail fanning shot here. Hi everyone, this is 4449 Productions here. Today we're on the SMT Mainline Subdivision, filming some derailing trains. This thing cannot stay on the track to save its life. I need like 15 more Polar Express cars for the movie, yeah. How many train cars could you run on that layout if you really wanted to? Probably 30 between the tracks. I think that would be a feasible number. I watch the movies that I've collected on DVDs. I use Roku TV. It constantly catches screenshots of what you're looking at, sends it back to you. I don't know. Should I avoid the DVD? I've never heard of a software sending you screenshots of movies. That's funny. Send you like a postcard. Oh, I hope you enjoyed your experience watching Fast and Furious 5. Can't go wrong with a DVD player, an old school dumb TV. Yeah, A few years ago, I used to be a really big believer in digital media. Like, you can buy a movie on some streaming platform and then, you don't worry about losing it or the disc getting scratched up or you name it. But a reoccurring problem I've seen with digital media is that when you don't have a physical copy, the company who you've bought it from can kind of do whatever they want. When I was younger, I had like a Minecraft account. And then one day Microsoft decided that you needed a Mojang account, and I hadn't played the game in so long, I didn't upgrade it. And they just deleted my account. And that's software which I paid for, whereas like, I have copies of like Trains with a Z, like Train Simulator. And no matter what the company ever decides to do, they can't take that away from me because I have a physical copy. So yeah, VHS, DVD, all that jazz. Definitely a good way if you want to hold on to stuff. Oh. You see how much that thing tilted? I was sure it was about to roll right off the layout. An assorted AVA. I don't think I have an assorted AVA set here at the moment. Daylight is doing some weird stuff. Weird, it's like it's moving forward, but it's not wanting to accelerate. Which is weird, because when I threw it on the track, it looked like it was already moving, so yeah. Can I use thicker oil to make my train quieter? Sometimes that will work if the gearbox is really tired or if it's all metal parts, but don't go too crazy with that, because you add a thicker oil, it lubricates better, but it also is more, it's a heavier fluid for the motor to move, so if you have an engine which isn't very powerful, it will add more strain to the motor. So just be careful the motor isn't, like when you're running it, it doesn't sound too labored. Oh, I think we got it. Poor Daylight getting punched. I was concerned that this thing was about to hit it. Here, we'll try to run this Australian B class. We'll see if that will get the job done. What's wrong with the Polar Express? It's fine. I like an unrealistic amount of A units. Did you move really far away from your parents' house? Not incredibly far. I'm still in the same town, just a different part. I know you're getting tired, but could you explain watts, volts, and amps? Okay, I'm gonna do this to the best of my understanding. But volts is sort of like the amount of potential energy you're putting in the track. And then amps is the actual load, like how much energy is being used. And I think watts is the combination of the two. So I would say, like, some people have asked me, like, a small train set controller puts out 16 volts, and then a larger controller like this is also roughly 16 volts. This goes a little higher, but a lot of them are 16 volts. What's the difference? If you're putting out the same amount of voltage, why does it matter how many amps your controller can handle? And the reason for that is because the amount of amps it can handle is how much power that controller can actually put out. So if you think about like a smart car and a Ford F-150, the smart car and the Ford F-150 can both go 60 miles an hour on the highway. But if you hook up a trailer to the smart car and put another truck on that trailer, the smart car is barely going to move, whereas the F-150 is going to pull it. So the amps are kind of like the pulling capacity, and the volts are sort of like the speed. I think that's probably the best way I can explain that. I've been told amps are like a bandwidth, how wide a hose is. Yeah, that's another way of explaining it. Like, volts are almost like the speed of the water flowing through something, and then the amps are almost like the capacity. Because voltage can be messed around with. You know, like you can take a 12-volt car battery and then run it through a inverter and a step up, and you can make it 120 volts. Do you have any modern B units? I don't think I do. A large hose would mean a higher amperage, more pressure in the hose would mean higher voltage. Have you got all your engines over to your new house? I've probably got about half of them over here. Still a long way to go, but I've just been busy with so many other things that You know, I bring a few over every time I go over to my parents' place, but, you know, there are other things I'm after at the moment. I've had it explained to me that volts is similar to the size of a pipe and amps is how much water you put through it. Yeah, well, I think that's kind of what DB Tech was getting at. I'm new to the hobby. Is there a major downside to getting N-gauge or smaller that I should know about? I don't think I can find room for an HO scale setup. Okay, so you're already on the right path, because a lot of people ask me what the best scale is, and again, I usually say base it off how much space you have. So if you don't feel like you have enough space for HO, N-scale's a really good choice. Is there any downsides to going with the smaller scale? I would say so. Not for N scale. N scale is fairly common, which means that there's a lot of different products for sale, and there's a lot of used products for sale. So if you want something specifically in N scale, you're going to be able to find it, and there's still decent detail, so on and so forth. I probably would advise not getting a scale smaller than N scale because, first of all, the prices on anything smaller than N scale are quite a bit higher, and the amount of products available are way lower. So I know there's a lot of people who are, you know, talking about like T scale or Z scale, and if you're really cramped on space, you could go with one of those scales. But I think that N scale is mainstream enough where if you know you're looking for something weird, you like there's a specific engine you want, you'll probably be able to find it in N scale. Finding it in Z scale or smaller, good luck. What does DCC and DC mean in terms of model trains? Is it a type of model? I'm new at this stuff. So DCC and DC, they sound very similar. One just has one more C's, but the meaning behind them is actually different. So DC is direct current. It basically means you're just putting power in the track. So you've got your controller. It takes the power from the walls of your house, and it converts it to direct current. And then depending on how much voltage you add, it makes the train go faster or slower. DCC is a bit of a different beast where it's actually always running at full capacity. There's always full power in the track, but a DCC engine has a decoder. So this controller, if let's say this engine was DCC, this controller communicates with that engine. So you can convert a DC engine into a DCC model if you want. You just have to add the decoder into it. But they're all the same engines. The decoder is the only difference. So if you buy an engine that's DCC equipped, it means it can work with the DCC controller. If it's an older engine, it's probably DC. It's just putting power in the track. DCC is kind of the more modern thing. DC has been around for pretty much as long as model railroading, and it's a little bit cheaper. I once saw a layout that fit on top of a dresser. It was pretty cool. Well, I have a great deal of respect for people that know how to really use space well. Like, you know, if you have enough room, you can kind of build something impressive. It's not as hard. Whereas if you have limited space, you really have to make every bit count. And there are some people that do it really well, and they manage to make a very impressive layout despite not having a whole lot to work with. Would PowerMite work for DCC or DC? I've never heard of PowerMite. If you're asking if you can run a DC engine on DCC, the answer is yes. Most DCC controllers will, they give you an option. You just put 0, 0, or on a Bachmann, you just put 0, and you can run a DC engine on DCC. And most DCC engines will also run on DC because the decoder has a bypass, which will allow it to run on regular power. So you can, it doesn't matter which system you have. You can pretty much run any train with anything. It's not great to be running a DCC engine on DC and vice versa, but it can be done. Perfect idea. I'll make a layout in my cabinet. Well, yeah, there's a whole group of modelers out there. They call them shelf layouts or shoebox layouts, where you're working with like a shelf area, something about the size of that right there. And so instead of having like a loop or anything like that, you just have like a few sets of tracks, and then you have one small engine, and then you switch cars between them and stuff. There's some people who don't even have like a layout. They just have like a test track, and they just focus on working on engines, like detailing them and stuff. I fried DC locomotives accidentally when I had my DCC controller connected to power. Always have to be careful. I've never done it myself. When I was younger, I had some engines which actually had DCC, and I didn't know they had DCC, and I ran them for years on DC, and those engines still have the same decoders. They still run. So I don't know how likely it is, but it is definitely a risk. Are you planning on adding some more things to the layout? I'm planning on adding a staging yard, a new freight yard, and an entire new loop with many industries. Modules are 1 foot with a 4 foot length. I've seen some people who have done some really crazy stuff too, like they've built a layout in an old guitar case, or with some smaller scales, they built a layout in like a toolbox and stuff like that. I take it you don't have work tomorrow. Well, I'm self-employed, so I can burn as much midnight oil as I want, and then you know, just burn myself the next day on it. Have you ever seen a coffee table layout? I've seen some, yeah. Some of them are really impressive. Good conversation starter. I could also see that being really good too. Building, for anybody that doesn't know a coffee table layout, it's, you know, it's kind of what the name says. It's like a coffee table with like a glass panel so that you can, yeah, David's talking about that right now, if it's with a glass top. I feel like that would be a really good option if you lived in like an apartment or something. Especially if you had like a partner, maybe they don't want you to be like taking up the whole place with a layout. The layout can kind of just be hiding in plain sight. Have you ever seen a train in a suitcase? I haven't seen that in person, but I have seen pictures of it. But there's a, at some of the train shows every year, there's some guys who show up and they have a whole bunch of different miniature layouts, and it's really impressive what they accomplish. It's really good too, because the two different things I have people asking on the channel is, oh, I wish I could get into model railroading, but, and the but is usually, I can't get into model railroading, but I don't have enough space, or I wish I could get into model railroading, but I don't have enough money. And the truth is, you don't need to have a crazy amount of money or a crazy amount of space to get into model railroading. Both of those things certainly help. But it's sad that there are people out there that feel like they've been stonewalled by one of those two obstacles. And I can see why. It's because if you're not in the hobby, you don't know where to find trains cheap, or you don't know how to build a layout with a limited amount of space. But there are people in the hobby who have done it. So everybody can get into it to some extent. It's just a matter of learning how. T-Track is a standard of multiple that connects for compact and easy storage layouts. The module. Okay, I already read part of that comment. There is a T-Track train club locally. I think it's in Mississippi, Ontario. That's always an option too for people out there. You know, if you don't have enough space or money to build a layout, see if you can find a train club, and then all you need to do is buy a locomotive. Some train clubs even have equipment. Like one of the train clubs I'm part of in Gatineau, they already have tons of locomotives there. So the only expense you have is the club fees. In their case, I think they're $85 a year in club fees. Some of the other train clubs I've been part of are $15 a year for memberships. So, you know, even if you can find a train club which already has equipment which you're allowed to use, and the memberships are only $15, you know, that's a pretty affordable way to be part of the hobby without having to kind of jump in. Are you going to add a separate layout from the one you had in your mega unboxing video from 1 year ago? I think it was G-Scale or something. Well, I have to find a place to put the G-Scale layout, yeah. $15 is a steal, especially in Canadian dollars. I pay $35 a month where I'm from, pretty pricey. Yeah, that's quite high. I think the big difference is that some of the train clubs are being run out of a space that they have to rent. So, you know, they're renting a storefront in an old mall or some building, and that gets expensive. The cheaper clubs I've seen are usually being run out of like somebody's basement. And so I think in that case, they're kind of just, they're charging people a bit just to maintain the layout, and they're charging a bit just to, you know, pay for the electricity and stuff. But I think that's probably, the rent is probably the deciphering factor. It's cheaper than a Costco membership. Yeah, that's a good point. That's exactly it. The club rents a basement in a downtown building. One of the train clubs I'm part of, was kind of, yeah, I'm not really part of it, but they were in the basement of like kind of an athletic place. And there were afternoons where there was sumo wrestling going on upstairs. And so we'd be in the basement running trains, and every so often you just hear this massive like crash, and it was almost like the floor shook. It didn't really shake. That's kind of an exaggeration, but it was loud. And this was like one of the first times I was at this club. I'd never seen it before. And so I was like, what is going on upstairs? And they're like, yeah, it's sumo wrestling. Ron of Classic Model Trains bought a club layout and put it up in a storage facility. I saw that. Oh, looks like we got a super chat for, I think, 20 Australian dollars. Love your videos, SMT, especially the other videos where you fixed models. You also inspired me to get into HO scale models. Wishing you the best of luck. Well, thank you so much, Pluto Unleashed. Question: in the near future, are you going to do a video or live stream of putting a train going in and out of the wall? Well, definitely through the basement. I don't know about outside, but we'll see. Third time the charm. Harrison, have you ever been to BV Hobby or Van Horn Hobby in the province of Quebec? BV Hobby has a very large club layout, and Van Horn Hobby has thousands of old stock. I've never actually heard of BV Hobby, but I have been to Van Horn. I actually did a video at Van Horn a couple of years ago. Van Horn is really impressive. I don't think I've ever seen a hobby shop with so much equipment, and their prices were decent, so I liked that place. The funny thing with Van Horn is I'm not trying to spread gossip, but apparently the owner is retired and he's sitting on a fair amount of money, and so there are a lot of guys that try to go in there and negotiate, and they just get refused because he's just like, well, I don't care, I don't need this place for the money, just running it for fun. Have you ever ran your Polar Express locomotive with freight cars? I can't say I have. I just got it like a couple days ago, so it's all kind of new to me. Can you run a scene with zebra stripes? Yeah, sure. I thought about having an HO scale layout about the size of your main loop and then putting glass over the top to make it a coffee table. That would be a hell of a big coffee table. The guy from Van Horn did pass this year, but it's still open. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Did you see the Chuff sink on your Polar Express due to the sensor off the tender wheels? I did see that. It caught me off guard because while I was filming that video, I moved the model by hand and I heard the chuffing sound and I forgot it was actually actuated by a mechanism and not by something in the decoder. Thank you so much for the super chat, Siebert. Can you run the Royal Hudson? Let me see if I have it here. Oh, it's the doodle bug I was looking for earlier. It was here. But as for the Royal Hudson, our survey says no. Not seeing it on the bottom shelf. It's funny, I thought I actually had brought it over. I guess not, but if there's something else you want me to throw on the track, I can definitely make that happen. My local train club has an old passenger car that was donated by CN. It was an old Grand Trunk Railway passenger car painted green and yellow scheme. Have you seen maybe Train Enthusiast video where he literally melts a Lionel train set? You know what? Actually, I did see that video. I remember that. At the end, he sets it on fire. So far, a lot of people have been in agreement on the Polar Express video, but I'm sure I'm going to get some comments from people saying, oh, you're being too hard on Lionel. They did a fine job with this set. But if they think I'm being too hard on the set, maybe Train Enthusiast actually set his on fire. So just to keep things in perspective here. The tooling on those sets goes back to model power. I also recommend you take a look at the newer HO scale Berks Lionel's plans to release with new tooling. The set is wonderful. It's just the way, it's just way too expensive for what it is. I completely agree with that. If they were selling this set for like $100, I would be doing a song and dance and talking about how wonderful it is and what a great job Lionel did and stuff. It's too much money. Maybe Train Enthusiast also specifically chose to set the train set on fire because he knew he wouldn't miss it. How about the A4? I think we can find an A4. I saw it on the shelf. We got it. I was able to hook up my 360 camera to my Oculus headset and had a look at my layout from ground level. It was a whole other experience. That's a cool idea. What's your favorite 90s song? Spin Doctor's Two Princes. I don't know a whole lot of 90s music, honestly. Sometimes, if you have enough room, you can get that air hoses on the North American couplers to kind of fit into the hook style. Unfortunately, in this case, I don't know if we're going to be able to attach these. It's pretty sketchy, but it might work. Oh, yeah. Have you seen the Titanic HO scale set? I can't say I have. I didn't even know they made that. You know, despite the fact that this is a fictional paint scheme and these are American cars and this is a British engine, it all looks surprisingly cohesive, more than it should, which is pretty cool. Joe Sanitari kept releasing songs through the 90s too. I really like his song, I think it's called Ride. I never knew you could couple British train that way. I have many new British trains myself. You just saved me a bit of time in the future. Well, it's not an official method, but yeah, it does work. The Lionel cars have too much drag. I think it's all the contacts. Because, yeah, you can see this guy slipping in the corner there. Do you still have your GoPro that you used for the video at your mom's house? I do somewhere, yeah. I don't know if it still works or not. The A4 rules. It's a nice unit. Are you going to try to put a double track diamond at the corner where the L shape is? I don't think so. I think it's probably just going to be one track that diverges off and then a second one that follows it. I've always had to connect the horn hook couplers to knuckle couplers. It's not recommended, but it works. It does. The only thing I used to do that a lot, but what I found is that the horn hook couplers are fine with that, but the knuckle couplers, if you lose the spring, it's kind of a pain in the neck getting it back in. So it's way easier just to take one car where you have a knuckle coupler on one side and a horn hook on the other. Like right now, these are all knuckle couplers, but the engine has horn hooks. Just gonna run and grab my water bottle. I don't think I had enough today. Any epic derailments happen while I was gone? Nope, good. Congratulations on moving into your new house. Thank you. That's more like it. What I've noticed is that the Lionel cars, certain ones create resistance because the contacts are all the reason the locomotive has traction tires on the cars. That makes a lot of sense. It seems like a pretty big flaw, honestly. I don't know why they don't just put bearings like they do in locomotives. I don't think that those would create as much drag as the wipers do. Was that a Trump? No, there's no political stuff. The Titanic Olympic switch theory is stupid. It's not possible. Yeah, that's a weird theory. What are you going to do with the table with all the track pieces on it? I'm going to try to salvage as much track as I can from this table. A lot of this is probably still usable, but the table itself, it needs to be replaced. Many, many moons ago, I could have bought a 2-man sub for $1,200. I didn't have any idea how you would make it safe, but it was only $1,200. I don't think I would get inside a submarine that only cost $1,200. Anything that flies or goes underwater, if it's a low price, I feel like that's probably bad news. Even, I don't know, like, you buy a cheap car, it could be dangerous, but fundamentally you're still on the road. Same with a cheap boat. you're out on the water, just as long as it doesn't sink. Like, you know, things aren't that bad. A cheap plane, I feel like that could backfire. How did a man as young as yourself buy a house? I've been saving for a long, long time and doing a lot of jobs to save up, and then a really big loan, which I have to pay off. Sick water bottle. I was gonna send you a post-war Lionel Santa Fe set, but I forgot you already did a video on the exact same one. Yeah, I still have to fix that engine up. Is the Canadian Postal strike over? I don't even know. I think they're on a rotating strike where they're running at half capacity or something. Frankly, I could kind of care less at this point what they get up to, because I'm yeah, I don't know. I'm done with that whole thing. I'm paid off. You keep on paying. Ah, good for you there. Hope I can get to that state one day. What year was your house built? The early 1950s. It's a rotating strike from what I can tell too, yeah. I can't wait to see the videos of the layouts being expanded and the old ones being reattached. It's going to be great to get the second segment going again. I mean, these two layouts were basically always the main part of the layout, and the mountain layout was never really used as much. So I think getting this operational again is going to be a good next chapter, and then, you know, actually getting the whole other part of it is going to be amazing. I really like a lot of the dead-end switches or grassed over track on your layout. It really adds to the lore. Yeah, and what's interesting about it too is that a lot of the tracks on my layout that look abandoned were actually used heavily at one point, but then as the layout changed, they're not used as frequently. So it's almost like a real railroad where they like built up infrastructure for an industry, and then, you know, when that industry moved away, the track kind of grew over. It sort of happened for real on the layout. Are you going to put the clear walls back up on the layout to stop trains from falling over? It would probably be worthwhile. I mean, earlier in the live stream, if you were here, you would have seen that one of the steam engines looked like it was getting ready to roll over. It didn't, but it was a close call. The house should be solid but not well insulated. Yeah, you're completely right about that. I've done a bit to try to increase the R value of the house. A lot of the windows, being from the 50s, are single pane, so I put foam over all of them. And I put some insulation, I forget what it's called, weather stripping around the door. The door was leaking air so badly that if you stood at the bottom of the staircase, you could actually just feel the cold air landing on you. It was that bad, so that has made a difference, but fundamentally, I don't know how well the house is insulated, but with the wood stove, it's doing a pretty good job at keeping the place warm. Like, I don't know if it's still as hot as it was earlier, but it was nearly 80. Yeah, we're just over 70 right now on the wood stove, and running the wood stove is very efficient for electricity. because all I have to do is run the blower. So like the last few days, I've been using about $1 or less of electricity every day. Yesterday, I used 40 cents a power, so it's not great that the house is losing a lot of heat, but just as long as it's not electrical energy, it shouldn't really show up in the bills too bad. My house was built in 1880. In 1908 or 1910, it was picked up and moved a quarter mile. Years ago, my parents were looking for property in Maine, and that was a pretty common thing. Houses that were built in the 1800s but were moved. Which is funny, you just don't really hear about houses being moved today, but I don't know, I guess back then it was more of a common practice. I just got off school for winter break, and I gotta say, I love your layout. It's simple and it looks super fun. Honestly, I've never cared for super large and complicated layouts. Well, I appreciate that. Plus, wood stove heat is the comfiest, isn't it? It's awfully nice being in there, yeah. Greetings from Germany. I like your content. Thank you. The wallpaper reminds me of the Windows XP Autumn desktop image. I think I know the one you're talking about, and I can kind of see it. This was probably put in the 2000s. Trains bring us a lot of happiness, wouldn't you agree? Absolutely. Run something else. Well, I'm probably going to wrap up the stream soon, so I think we'll put the Polar Express on. I am impressed with how well the British coupler is working with this North American style, though. I wasn't sure if that was going to function well. They didn't have all the overhead power lines in the early 1900s. You have an Alaska snowplow? I don't have a snowplow, but I do have a snow blower. If that's what you mean. As a Canadian, have you ever heard of the Halifax explosion in World War II? Cargo ships collided and one was carrying... Yeah, I have heard of the Halifax explosion. That was a major tragedy. One thing I learned about in Canadian history when I was in school is apparently that incident actually helped doctors learn a lot about how eyes worked, because they had to remove so much glass from people's eyes, because when it happened, a lot of people looked at their windows, and you can kind of understand what happened after that. But yeah, really unfortunate thing. The Olympic, which was the Titanic sister ship, that was the same harbor that it went through. So if timing had been a little bit different, we could have actually lost the Olympic in that event too, which would have been, well, obviously incredibly tragic, because there would have been more people in the port, but that ship was also very critical to helping Canada and the United States in the Second World War, so that would have been really bad. I don't know why this is shutting down randomly. That seems bad. This thing has got electrical issues. I don't know why it keeps powering up, and then it's just like, okay, when I give it full power, hopefully that will sort it out. I'm not liking whatever this is. I'm gonna try running it on DC power. Maybe it will run a little better on that. Okay. The people of Halifax, who gave the Olympic the name Old Reliable because of how vital it was. Well, how vital it was, but also the fact that it just never let anybody down. I mean, if you think about the Titanic and Britannic, they both failed. The Olympic was the only one that seemed to just escape every single tragedy. And so, I think that it got the name Old Reliable very well deserved. It was a blessed ship. Something about it was luckier than the rest. Uh-oh, it looks like we're gonna get a follow-up video fixing the Polar Express. Yeah. Did you hear the rumor that the Titanic and the Olympic names were swapped? That would mean the Titanic is still floating and the Olympic was at the bottom of the sea. I've heard that theory before. I personally don't believe it, because despite the Titanic and the Olympic being very similar, they did have physical differences. And so in order to do that, you would actually, because Titanic, I think, had a closed, one of the upper decks was partly closed. On Olympic, it was open. So you would have to modify the ship. There were too many different things for something like that to happen. And the Titanic was also underinsured, so there wouldn't have been a financial gain to, the conspiracy of sinking it. Looks like a decoder issue. It's running fine now, but that was weird. The Olympic also had watertight compartments after what happened to Titanic. Yeah, they over-engineered the ship afterwards. By the end, the Olympic was a bigger ship than Titanic in terms of weight, after all the stuff they added to it. I didn't know the Titanic had a sister ship. It had two. It had Olympic, and it also had Britannic. But Olympic was the first, so I think it would more be like Olympic had a sister ship. And another thing a lot of people don't know is that a lot of the pictures of the Titanic that you see online are actually pictures of Olympic, because back then in the early 1900s, film was so expensive to develop. It was cheaper just to reuse photos, so there's a lot of pictures online of like what the Titanic's propellers looked like and stuff, and they're photos of an actual ship, but it is not Titanic. It is actually pictures of Olympic. And so sometimes in books about the Titanic, if you look very carefully, there's a little small print saying it's actually a picture of Olympic, not Titanic. So Titanic, I don't think would ever have been a very famous ship if it hadn't sank. I think it's a notorious boat, right? Whereas Olympic, I feel like could have just as easily been a good story on the fact that it was basically everything the Titanic wasn't. I wish it would get more attention, honestly. I think it's a much better story. The swap photos might be where the rumor came from. Yeah, it could have been, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people get confused about these things. Did Olympic go down sometime? Olympic never sank. The thing that finally did the Olympic in was the depression. The economy was just doing so bad, and the fact that it was an older ship just meant that it was burning a lot of fuel in a time where money was really tight. So ultimately, yeah, the Great Depression was the thing that took it down. It really begs the question, if the economy had been doing better in that point, if the Olympic actually would have gone on longer. It would take more than both boats to make one of today's ships. Yeah, years ago, back in like 2010, I was in the Bahamas and I saw Oasis of the Seas, which at the time was the world's biggest cruise ship. I was so caught off guard by how big the ship was. Like, I was on land and it was far away, but it felt like it was close just because the thing was so large. Did Olympic go? No, the Olympic was just scrapped. It's kind of too bad in a way that they didn't intentionally sink the Olympic at the end, like make it a reef. I know that back then that wasn't a practice, but it's kind of cool that Britannic is still around because it sank. So it would have been nice if they had put the Olympic in a spot where, you know, people could actually still go to see it. You cannot pay me enough to set sail on a modern cruise ship. I'm with you on that. I know some people, I'm like friends with some people who love them, but personally, I would never go on one. They don't sound at all appealing to me. The Olympic was scrapped in 1935 because it was 30 years old, and usually the ships are retired or scrapped. Well, I know that the metal starts to fatigue over time. Ever seen the film One in a Storm? I can't say I have. Do scrapped boats theoretically become locomotives? Well, I mean, yeah, if you think about metal being recycled, you know, you could have a soda can made out of what at one point was part of a truck, you know, at least for a Ford aluminum truck. It's I don't know, it's weird to think that, I don't know, anything you have that's made out of metal could have been a machine at some point. It's interesting how the Polar Express had 5 cars, 19, and then 5 again. Well, yeah, I mean, that's Hollywood for you, right? They change things to make it look more exciting. Modern cruise ships, floating petri dishes. Yeah, there's that, and I don't know. Just the idea of being like stuck on a boat. I don't like that idea. It's funny. I love the water. I like being out by the ocean in Maine. I have a little runabout boat. I love taking that out. The idea of being on a cruise ship for multiple days. I don't want it. I think the craziest boat, like the closest thing I've ever been to being on a cruise ship, and you can't even call it a cruise ship because it's definitely not, is in Portsmouth. There's a boat that the locals called the Tippy Tom, and it's this old steamship which was converted to diesel, and it goes out to the Isles of Shoals, which is sort of a research island. Yeah, you can go on a day trip, and you take the ship up there, and it comes back. But that's like maybe a half-hour run up there and a half-hour back. Love the new place. The wood paneling is a vibe. I like it. There's some people saying I should paint it. I don't think I will. I know it looks out of date, but I kind of like that. When I'm playing my 70s era music, it's gonna be on point. I'll have to put on some Christmas, what's it called? Salsa Soul Orchestra. What's at the very top left of the shelf? This thing, a Doodlebug? Or the Christmas display? I wouldn't want to go on like a long run, but I've also been on a couple of what are those called? Like the ferries, you know, where you drive your car onto a ferry. I find those a lot of fun. How's it going, SMT? I love the new layout and I love your videos. Thank you. There's a movie about the Britannic. It's not great. It's a knockoff of the James Cameron film. I've never heard of that. You need a vintage stereo in the room. Well, the thing that kind of burns me is that when I toured the house, they still hadn't cleared out all the stuff. And up on that wall right there, they didn't have the stereo, but they had a great big tray of old cassettes. And I figured they were just going to leave that, and then when I bought the place and came inside for the first time, it was all gone, so it's too bad. I was hoping to find an old cassette player and go through all those cassettes. I thought, oh, there's got to be some cool old music on there. Thank you so much for the super chat, Spartan. What year was the house built? I think it was 1953. Most of it was built in 53. I know this whole section that we're in right now is built in the 70s. It was built in 75 or so. So if you look right here, you can see there's that lip. So that right here is the original foundation, and that's why there's a load-bearing wall. That's brick. It's all cinder blocks because this is where they added onto it. What's the picture of the guy? Oh, I can't speak English anymore. What's the picture of the guy with the guitar on the wall? That is Angus don't remember his last name. One of the main singers from the band AC/DC. I wish I could remember his last name. Somebody will know. Angus Young, yes. He's the guitarist. My bad. My bad. They brought back the vinyl records. Too bad you can't afford them. I've never had a record... Well, no, I never had a record player myself. My mom had an old record player. My grandmother has all the records, and sometimes she brings them over, but that's about it. You should get a bigger outboard to work on. Well, I currently have a 90 V4, but I have a 140 horse two-stroke looper engine, and that is at my parents' place in their garage. So my idea is at some point when the 90 horse goes out, I'm going to throw the 140 on there, and then I'm really going to be able to rock and roll. Because the 140 is also a higher displacement engine. It's 2,000 cc's, which, even though the horsepower is not that much different from the 1600 cc, it has more torque. And then no one's ever going to be able to keep up with me. How big is your boat? It's a 15-footer. Good morning from Austria. We've actually managed to run the live stream long enough that it's now morning in other parts of the world. It's great. I don't really know why, but in recent years, like over the last year, the viewership of this channel in Germany and Austria has gone way up. I don't know why, because I haven't been making videos about German or Austrian trains, but they've become a bigger part of the viewer base. It's interesting. So thank you to all you guys out there. You got to get a vintage fan. I already have one. I have a Torcan Turbo fan. Great thing about having a house which is out of date is that you can go to pawn stores and antique shops and find all sorts of things that are vintage, and they don't even look outdated because they just match with the house. It's simple. Germans and Austrians love trains. Well, that's definitely true. I just don't understand why, you know, why now? Why they've become a bigger part of the viewer base. If anybody is watching this from Germany or Austria, please tell me what the new interest is. If you know, if there's something that directed you to the channel recently. They can understand your Canadian accent, eh? I should have my grandmother from Germany start dubbing all the videos. You've been running these trains for hours, yeah. 206 minutes to be exact. Do you have a Virginian locomotive? Yeah, kind of. It's a little weird. I'll throw it on the track. Some of you out there will already know what I'm about to put on the track. It's it's special. What does everybody think? I'm pretty sure this engine is just programmed to 3, so if I set the entire layout to DCC, I think it should, yeah. Gotta love that honk on startup. Coupler height on this has never really worked right. I'll see if I can get these cars off the main line before it loops back around here. This is gonna be quick. And now the engine has just stalled for some reason. What the Frankenstein is that? It's not even Frankenstein. Somebody just took some kind of a Swedish locomotive and then they repainted it into a Virginian. I think they were trying to mimic some kind of box cab engine the Virginian Railroad actually had for moving coal. They picked a really expensive model to do it on. I've seen some of these things going for like $1,000 on eBay. It was really hilarious when I did the video of unboxing this, though, because, you know, a lot of people were just like, that's a weird train. But there were some Swedes who were like, what did you do to our baby? Did you fix the switch? Oh, maybe the track has electrical issues. Is that what's going on? Oh, that's not good. So we know that that switch is not, power's not flowing through it, which usually I electrically bypass them, so it shouldn't even be doing that. But that also means there's a bad connection somewhere over there. Easy way to find that. So we're gonna figure out where the bad connection is here. Pretty easy way to do this. We'll flip that switch there. We can see the engine's still running, so we're gonna find out where it kicks out. The wheels, yeah, they're arcing. The wheels are so big they're touching the other rail there. So it seems to be knocking out right around there. That right there is my main suspect. So we're just going to connect a little wire here, and we're going to see if that's the bad connection. I don't have enough wire here. Nope, nothing there. Nothing. Nothing. So those connections are good. It probably is right here. Let's move this a little further forward, and we'll check both these. And lo and behold. So that joiner and that joiner need to be soldered. It's always a good idea to do that, because if you have an issue like that happening, you know, it's like, oh, it's okay, it's flowing, but it means the power is flowing halfway through your track. So if you have an engine and it runs part of the way through the circuit, and it starts to slow down, and then it gets to a certain point, it speeds back up, that right there is why. Next time you're in the LA area, you can go to Long Beach and stay the night in the Queen Mary, since it's a hotel now. I thought they were renovating it. Maybe that's done. No, if ever I go back to California, it's probably going to be to Palm Springs, because that's where my uncles live now. I've got a pretty nice place up there. Planned obsolescence: you should make a toy that is expected to break in order to be good. In terms of Lionel's train, hopefully not. It seems to be running fine now. What do you think of those dangerous steam trains that ran off coal dust piles on the side of mines? I've never heard about that. I don't know. My Fleetwood Brougham is a beautiful purple pearl metallic color. Fleetwood. See, I've got the poor man's Cadillac. I've got the Oldsmobile. Athearn failed with planned obsolescence then. I have heard a theory that there are some companies that make a product that's so good they put themselves out of business because nobody has to replace them. That was a theory with Johnson Evinrude outboards, is that they were building outboards and they were running for so long that people weren't buying new ones. I kind of think that might be what's going on in the snowmobile world, because at one point, I think in the early 70s, there was 100 snowmobile manufacturers, and by the end of the 80s, I think that they were probably down to like 15, and today there's only a handful. There's like 5, and you gotta wonder if it's like there's so many, and there's a lot of old snowmobiles still running, and it just makes you wonder, where there's so many companies producing a product that everybody who wanted a snowmobile got one, and then they had one and it never stopped running, so there was no longer a demand. Oldsmobiles were good cars. They had a lot going for them. They were definitely a major innovator at one point. My Oldsmobile also has the 403, which is a really interesting engine. In terms of auto builders, yeah, it has mixed thoughts, but the 403 was actually a racing engine. And apparently it was the first time where GM had fixed the balancing issue, because on older GM motors, on some of the older Cadillacs, I think like the 7.6, 7 something, I forget what it is, those engines would just rattle apart if you revved them too high. The 403 was one of the first engines that could really take being revved. $9:30 here in Alaska. You got to be streaming late. Young man's game. Also, we call them snow machines here. I've heard people call them snow machines here as well. But snowmobile seems to be the more common thing. That or Ski-Doo. Everybody seems to call every snowmobile a Ski-Doo. I think it's like kind of the Kleenex of snowmobiles. The 327 and the 350 can eat dirt in the intake and not care. Thanks for stopping by, Bill. The 350 is definitely tough. Yeah, the 350s are legendary. I mean, the 403 is basically just an overboard 350. It shared the same block, a lot of the same parts. In California, they call them sandmobiles. When I was in auto mechanics, my teacher had his snowmobile in the classroom, and all the guys were always just hemming and hawing. You could tell that they were always thinking in the back of their mind, gee, if he was just looking away for long enough, we could probably drive this out in the parking lot. I got an Athearn ready to roll AC 4400. It runs fine forward, but when I run it in reverse, the left rear corner it clicks. How can I fix it? Maybe it has a bad gear. I don't know. It could also be that there's a little piece of ballast or a rock or something caught in the gearbox. I would mess around with it. Do you have any Australian steam locomotives? Really recommend them if you can find a locomotive for a good price. They're a mix of US and UK design. I have some Australian engines, so I know what you're talking about. I have one Australian steam locomotive, but it needs to be rebuilt. It was somebody's project, and they didn't do a very good job. But it was based off a Lima engine, which I think was genuinely Australian. So once I fix it, I'll have an Australian steam engine, but for the time, I don't have a working one. Ain't it almost bedtime? It is almost bedtime. I usually go to bed at about 2 o'clock in the morning, so. Oh, this thing is really rocking and rolling now. Let's turn down the voltage a little bit here. Okay, I turned down the power, and now the Polar Express is back to doing its weird light stuff. That's weird. I really hope this thing doesn't have electrical issues. I can't say for a modern locomotive that looks really good from a current draw standpoint, you know, quarter amp. I know some of the passenger cars are probably drawing some of that power, but just out of curiosity here, and that's not even at full power, just out of curiosity here, how much... Oh, okay, haha, yeah, that's my bad. I forgot that I was running both engines off the DC controller. I thought I had them on separate controllers, so that's probably why. Let's see how much power. Yeah, so the cars plus this engine right here are drawing, what would you call that, maybe 1/8 of an amp? So I guess this thing is maybe drawing about, like, I don't know, 1/10 of an amp. That's not bad. That's good. I thought we were about to lose the motor. Hey, SMT Mainline, love from Chicago. I'm running an EMDF series locomotive with 3 Amfleet cars, as well as 3 Northern Pacific Northwest Limited. Running EMDF series. I'll see what I can find here. Whoa. There we go. It's starting to do that stuff again. Have you struggled programming road numbers to locomotives on the DCS-51s with lock sound decoders? I had a Broadway, I think it was a Broadway Limited. I want to say it was an AC 6000. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, and that engine had a weird system where it was almost like there was one decoder for sound and another decoder for actually programming the engine. And I couldn't program the sound to work on that thing for the life of me. And there was this guy who works on DCC stuff, and he actually called me up one day and said, hey, we're going to do a video chat. I'm going to get this all sorted out for you. You know, you just aren't programming it right. So we worked on that for probably about a half hour. And by the end of it, he was just as perplexed as I was. So I don't know if it was that specific decoder or if it was the DCS-51, but it might have been that same decoder. The Polar Express 2 trailer is more AI than the Coca-Cola trailer. Well, I don't think that that's a real trailer. Everybody keeps saying, oh yeah, they're coming out with another Polar Express movie, and there are some rumors floating around about that, but I haven't seen any, like, conclusive evidence that they're even making that, and all these trailers that are popping up, I think that they're all fake. I think they're all just saying that they're official. Yeah, the thumbnails for these videos, they look ridiculous. The engine has like 2 headlights and stuff like that. AI cannot fool train nerds. It's getting good, but it cannot fool train nerds. Polar Express doesn't need a sequel. Well, if they did make a sequel, I don't even know what it would be about. I heard it was going to be the exact same remake, but live action. If that was done correctly, I think that could actually be kind of cool, but personally, I think what they should do is remaster it. I feel like the movie, like the animation for the age, considering it's over 20 years old now, it doesn't look terrible, but with the technology they have now, like to animate stuff, I feel like they could probably do a remaster of that movie and make it look a heck of a lot better. Well, anyway, I think I'll finish off the live stream soon. It's almost reached 230 minutes, and the Polar Express is starting to struggle. So anyway, I'll reach that 230-minute mark, and I'll read off some last comments. But yeah, what's your opinion on Netflix buying Warner Bros. Park? I don't know. I haven't read into anything about that. Sounds like something's derailed. Whatever it was derailed itself. That's cool. With more ship facts you didn't ask for. That's funny. You ran an Australian engine the last few minutes. I'll throw one on really quick. It's just sending it around here. Have a good night. I've just been working on my Kato N scale. That's how I usually watch live streams. Just work on stuff on my layout. Kind of feels like you're there with a bunch of other model railroaders. Have you ever thought about moving scenery? Some of it is going to be moved around. I have no doubt about that. Salute. I just got a couple of viaduct sets, and I'm trying to work on the layout with them. Scenery that moves. Oh, like, what's it called? I can't remember. There's a term for things on a model railroad that move. Action-based figurines. We'll just call it that for now. But yeah, it would be nice to add some stuff that was operable. I don't know what, but I'd like to. And long stretch of track called the Chicago Line in Sweden, Ontario is a great place for rail fanning. Good to know. Anyway, that's 230 minutes of streaming. Thank you all so much for joining in this evening. As usual, I had a lot of fun running trains around, and I hope you all enjoyed as well. We'll see what happens. There might be another live stream around Christmas Eve, but we'll see. I don't want to make any promises in case something comes up. But yeah, should be some cool stuff along the way, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, have a wonderful night, everyone.